Chapter 1. Knives in the Rain. Rain in Talabheim did not fall so much as it was poured. It came down in hard, slanting sheets that found the seams in cloaks and the cracks between cobbles that slicked the city's black stone until it shone like old bruises. It ran in rivulets off the crater's upper ring roads and gathered speed as it descended, eager as a crowd to see a hanging. By the time it reached the low districts, it had learned the taste of soot, lamp oil, and sewage. It slid along gutters already stained the color of rust and old wine, carrying with it yesterday's ash and today's blood. Rika Voss liked rain. It made men hunch their shoulders and look down. It made watchmen squint into their hoods. It made footsteps uncertain and sounds muddled. Rain turned an alley into a confession box where nobody noticed the penitent kneeling with a knife. She stood under the eaves behind the hanged pike, a beer hall that served frothing ale and fistfights with equal generosity. Its rear door kept opening to vomit out laughter, then slamming shut as if ashamed. Yellow lantern light spilled into the alley in a crooked stripe, catching the rain like thrown needles. Rika's boots were soft-soled. That mattered more than prayers in a city like this. The contract had been simple. A man called Holtz, no first name on the slip, which meant he either didn't have one worth writing down or had too many. Dockwood sort, middle-aged, greasy hair, a scar like a worm across his chin. He'd been seen taking coin from someone who didn't like to pay twice. He drank at the hanged pike. He pissed behind it, he went home alone, and he would not be missed by anyone who could afford to make noise. Rika did not wonder who had put the coin down. Wondering was a luxury. Luxuries got you buried. She waited with her shoulders loose, breathing slow, letting the cold seep in and keep her honest. Her knife sat warm against her palm, its grip wrapped in dull cloth that did not catch lantern glow. No shine, no poetry, just steel and the promise of an ending. The back door opened again. Men spilled out, thick with ale and bravado. One shoved another into the rain and barked a laugh. Boots splashed in a puddle that stank of piss. They moved away, loud and careless, and Rika let them go like a fisherman lets minnows pass. Then came the target. Halt staggered into the alley alone, fumbling at his breeches. The rain hit him, and he cursed at the sky as if it were a debtor. He leaned against the wall, unbuckled with trembling fingers, and began to relieve himself with the solemn concentration of a man performing sacred rites. Rika stepped into the lantern's crooked stripe. He did not notice until she was close enough to smell him. Ale, sweat, cheap onions. Fear, when it arrived, was always a clean smell. His head turned. The scar on his chin pulled tight. His eyes tried to focus. Failed. Tried again. Who? He slurred. Rika reached up with her left hand and caught his jaw, thumb pressing into the soft place beneath his ear. She turned his head gently, almost tenderly, as one might turn a child away from a rude sight. The knife went in just under the ribs, angled up, a practiced thrust into the meat that housed breath and courage. He made a sound that was more surprise than pain. His hand flew to his belly. Warm blood spilled between his fingers and steamed in the cold rain, dark and sudden, like ink in water. Rika leaned in, close enough that her mouth was near his ear. Quiet work was easier when you kept the dying calm. "It's done," she murmured, not as kindness but as efficiency. "Don't thrash. You'll drown in your own lungs." His eyes widened at that, clarity snapping in as the body realized it was betrayed. He tried to speak, but only wet air came out. Rika withdrew the knife in one smooth motion and caught him as his knees buckled. She lowered him, careful, until his back met the wall and he slid down like a sack of grain. Rain washed his blood into the gutter, joining the city's eager flow. He looked up at her with hateful incomprehension. Most did, at the end. They wanted their death to make sense, as if sense mattered in the Empire's filth. Rika wiped the knife on his coat, keeping her movements small. She was already stepping back into shadow when his hand clamped around her wrist with startling strength. His grip was slick, his nails dug in like hooks. Rika paused. In the dim light his mouth worked, forming words around a throat filling with red. "Listen," he rasped. You shouldn't." Rika's eyes flicked to the beer hall door. No more drunkards. For the moment, the alley was theirs and the rain's. He swallowed, choking. His pupils were wide as coins. There was something in them that wasn't just fear, something urgent, something that made the hairs on Rika's neck rise despite herself. "The Crimson," he whispered. Rika's face went still. "A name. Names were never part of contracts." He pulled her wrist closer, desperate, dragging her down into the stink and the rain, as if he could claw his warning into her skin. "The Crimson Gutter," he said, voice breaking. "It's hungry." Then his grip loosened. His hand slid off her wrist and dropped into the puddle at his side. His head lolled. A thin line of blood leaked from his nose and mouth, washed immediately away by the unclean mercy of rain. For a heartbeat Rika remained crouched, listening. The hanged pike's muffled roar continued, oblivious. Above, on the ring roads, carriage wheels hissed through water, the wealthy moving in circles within their crater, like fat beetles that refused to look down. Somewhere farther off, a bell rang from a temple, the sound dulled by rain and distance, the kind of bell meant to remind the poor they were watched by gods who did not live near gutters. Rika straightened, hungry. She flexed her wrist where the dead man's nails had bitten. The words sat in her mind like grit under a lid. She had heard 100 last words in her time. Curses, prayers, whimpers, the names of lovers, the names of mothers. This was different. This was a warning thrown like a stone from a sinking hand. Crimson Gutter. Talabheim had plenty of gutters. In the lower districts, gutters were the street's veins. They carried the crater's waste down and down until it pooled in canals and seeped into the city's underbelly. Men disappeared in those places sometimes. Women, too. The watch called it misfortune. The priests called it punishment. The tavern talk called it the price of living too close to the edge. Rika pushed the thought away. Curiosity got you dead. She had coin to collect and a narrow window to vanish before anyone came to piss where Hultz now cooled. She melted into the rain. Talabheim was a city built like a wound. From the rim you could see the crater's bowl, ring upon ring of stone roads stepping down towards the center like the terraces of some ancient amphitheater. The rich lived high, where the air was cleaner and the rain arrived less tainted. Their manses and guild halls clung to the upper rings behind ironwork and guards, and they spent their evenings pretending they did not hear the city's hunger from below. Lower down, the districts grew tighter, older, meaner. Houses leaned at angles as if trying to escape the stink. Canals cut through like open scars, choked with refuse and barges. Bridges hung low and slick with moss. Here the rain tasted of everything that had come before it: chimney soot, tanners' runoff, human waste, blood from butchers' yards, and it found the poor with unerring devotion. The dockwood was where the city bled most freely. It clung to the canals and the old drainage channels like mold. Lanterns were fewer here, and the darkness had teeth. Rika moved through it with the easy certainty of someone who had been prey long enough to learn how to become a predator. Her cloak was patched and plain. Her hood shadowed her face. She kept her hands empty, knife hidden, posture unremarkable, In a place like this, looking like you belonged was armor. She passed a watch patrol at a corner where a lamp sputtered in the rain. The men huddled under their hats and glanced up only briefly, eyes sliding away from her like oil off water. Watchmen did not look too closely in Dockwood unless paid. Looking too closely could cost you more than coin. She turned down a narrow lane where the buildings pinched together overhead. The rain here fell in a thin line, as if squeezed. Somewhere a woman coughed, deep, wet, the kind of cough that meant the lungs were already losing. Somewhere else a man shouted and was answered by the dull thud of a fist meeting flesh. Rika followed the lane until it opened into a small square where a broken fountain sat like a dead idol. She had known this place once, before she learned how to kill for money. Back then she had stood under these same eaves, waiting for men with coin and bad intentions. Back then she had prayed for rain because it meant fewer customers and more time to breathe. Now she stopped because something was wrong. A line, a neat, patient line of women and girls, huddled under mismatched shawls, waiting in the rain. They stood shoulder to shoulder with the dull resignation of livestock waiting for slaughter, but there was a strange undercurrent among them, murmured hope, the kind that could be bought with a warm bowl and a kind word. At the end of the line was a door she did not remember. A building that had once been boarded up and half collapsed now stood repaired, its timbers straightened, its windows washed clean. A sign hung above the door, freshly painted, the letters curling like a lover's hand. The Velvet Mercy Foundation. A lantern burned beneath the sign, its light steady despite the rain. It gave the doorway a soft glow, as if the building itself held warmth that the street did not deserve. Rika's mouth tightened. Charity in Talabheim was rare. Charity that looked like this, clean, well-fed, almost pretty, was rarer still. A woman in a grey cloak stood at the door, smiling as she spoke to each girl before letting them in. Her voice carried in the rain, low and soothing, like a lullaby. "Come in, love. There's soup inside, and dry cloth. We'll see you safe." The girls moved forward, one by one, disappearing through the doorway into the light. Rika watched, feeling something old stir in her chest. Not hope. Hope was a poison. This was suspicion, sharp as cold steel. She spotted a face she recognized. Lysa, older now, cheeks hollow, eyes too bright. Lysa had once shared a mattress with Rika in a room so small it felt like a coffin. Lysa had laughed a lot then, because laughing was cheaper than crying. Now Lysa did not laugh. She clutched her shawl in both hands like it was the only thing keeping her from falling apart. Rika stepped closer. "Lysa." The girl's head snapped up. For a moment she stared as if seeing a ghost. Then her eyes filled with something like relief, quickly strangled by fear. "Rika?" Her voice cracked. "By all the gods, I thought I was dead?" Rika's tone was flat. "Most people did. It was safer that way." Lysa glanced towards the Foundation's door, then back to Rika. Her lips trembled. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. Rika's gaze followed hers to the smiling woman at the door. "What is this?" "A mercy," Lysa said, but the word sounded rehearsed, as if she had been told to say it. "They feed us. They give work." "Safe work?" Rika snorted softly. "There's no such thing." Lysa's eyes darted again. She leaned in, rain dripping from her lashes. "It's better than the street, better than the gangs. They have doctors, warm beds. They don't," she swallowed. "They don't beat you." Rika studied her face. There were bruises fading on her neck, half hidden by the shawl. Finger marks. Not old. Not from street johns. Those bruises had the tidy shape of hands that knew exactly how much pressure to use. Who did that? Rika asked. Lysa flinched, as if struck. No one. It was an accident. Rika's jaw clenched. Behind them, the line shuffled forward. A girl near the back looked to be no more than 15, cheeks red with cold. Her eyes were fixed on the doorway like it was a temple. Rika caught Lysa's wrist gently, feeling how thin it had become. Listen to me. If you're in trouble, Lysa's grip tightened suddenly, nails digging in. Panic flashed across her face, raw and animal. I am, she hissed, barely audible over the rain. I am in trouble. Rika, please. They said if I told anyone, they'd... Her voice broke. She swallowed hard, eyes glossy. They took Mera. Rika's heart did not so much beat as stumble. Mera, a small girl with tangled hair and a knife-sharp smile. Rika had once shoved a man's head into a wall for touching Mera wrong. Rika had once given Mera half her bread because the child was too proud to beg. What do you mean, took? Rika asked, voice suddenly very calm, which was always how it got when she was close to violence. Lysa's gaze went unfocused, as if recalling a nightmare. She went inside. For soup. For mercy. Her laugh was a wet hiccup. She never came back out, I asked. And the woman at the door smiled and said Mera had been placed. Like she was a chair. Like she was. Her words dissolved into a sob she tried to swallow. Rika's eyes narrowed. Placed where? Lisa shook her head, frantic. I don't know. They won't tell me. They said I should be grateful. They said I should trust Velvet Mercy. They said... She lowered her voice further, leaning close enough that Rika could smell the fear on her breath. They said, the gutter is hungry, and it needs to be fed. Rika's skin prickled. Crimson gutter. Hungry. The words fitted together in her mind like dirty puzzle pieces. Lysa, Rika said, don't go in there. Come with me. Now. Lysa's eyes filled again, but this time with despair. She shook her head once, slowly. They have my name, she whispered. They have my debts. They have my everything. Her fingers clutched Rika's sleeve, pleading and ashamed. If I run, they'll find me. If I don't go in, they'll come out. Rika looked past her to the door. The smiling woman's gaze had drifted, casual as a cat's, and now rested on Rika. For a moment the smile did not change, but something behind it sharpened, as if a blade had turned in the dark. Rika released Lysa's wrist. All right, she said softly. Go. Lysa blinked at her. What? Go in, Rika said, voice low. Do what you have to do, but you tell me where they take you, if you can. You find a way. Lysa's mouth opened, trembling. Rika! Don't! Rika stepped back into the rain, letting her hood shadow her face again. I'll find Mera. Lysa's eyes squeezed shut, and when she opened them there was a desperate gratitude there that hurt more than anger. The line moved. Lysa was pushed forward by the bodies behind her. She hesitated, then let herself be guided to the door. The woman in grey greeted her with the same soft voice, the same warm smile. Lysa glanced back at Rika once, then disappeared inside. The door shut. Rika remained in the square, rain soaking her shoulders, watching the sign sway slightly in the wind. The Velvet Mercy Foundation. She felt the city's weight press down. Above, somewhere on the upper rings, men with clean hands drank wine and congratulated themselves on living in a civilized place. Below, in the dockwood, Girls lined up in the rain for soup and safety, and something hungry waited beneath their feet. Rika turned away. Night deepened. Lanterns guttered. The rain did not stop. She moved through Dockwood like a shadow looking for cracks. She spoke to a fishmonger who owed her a favor, to a tavern girl who still remembered her, to a ragpicker who knew every alley like a prayer. She asked after Mara. She asked after the Foundation. She asked about girls who vanished. The answers were all the same shape: shrugs, crossed fingers, fearful looks. People spoke of velvet mercy with the wary reverence reserved for plague and priests. They would take the soup, they would take the blankets, but they would not speak too loudly of where the charities' wagons went at night. "It's good folk," one man muttered, eyes averted. "Good folk doing good. Leave it be. Better than starving," a woman whispered. "Better than the gangs." And always, under it all, a phrase repeated like a curse: "The gutter is hungry." Rika felt that phrase scrape against her skull until it was raw. Near midnight she found blood. Not much at first, just a smear on a wall near a narrow alley that ran behind the Foundation's building. Fresh. The rain had tried to wash it away, but the brick drank greedily. Rika crouched and touched it with 2 fingers. Warm still, not old. A sound drifted from somewhere ahead, a soft sob, cut off abruptly. Rika rose without sound and followed the smear. It led behind the Foundation, where the alley narrowed into a tight chute between buildings. The lanterns were fewer here. Shadows pooled thickly. Rain ran down the walls in streams. The blood trail became droplets, then a thin line as if someone had been dragged. The smell of iron mixed with the smell of wet rot. Rika's hand slipped to her knife. She moved forward, each step placed with care. The alley ended at a low iron grate, set into the ground, a storm drain wide enough for a man to crawl through. The grate's lock had been broken recently. The metal was bent inward like a mouth forced open. More blood marked the stone around it. Rika lowered herself, peering down. Darkness yawned beneath, deeper than it should have. The drain's throat swallowed the rain, gurgling softly, like something drinking. Then she saw movement. A figure below, half hidden in shadow, dragging something heavy along the slick tunnel floor. The figure wore a mask, pale, smooth, featureless, except for a painted smile. It caught what little lantern light reached down and reflected it back in a dead sheen. The thing being dragged was a girl. Her limbs hung limp. Her hair trailed in the filthy water. One arm scraped along the stone, leaving a smear of blood. Rika's stomach clenched as she recognized the shawl lacers. The masked figure paused, tilting its head as if listening, and from beneath the city, from the drain's throat, came a sound so soft it might have been the rain itself. A lullaby, hummed low and sweet, threading through the darkness with obscene tenderness. A mother's song, sung by something that had never been human. Rika's breath caught. The masked figure resumed its slow, patient dragging, humming as it went deeper into the tunnel, until the darkness swallowed both mask and girl. Rika remained crouched at the edge of the storm drain, rain running down her face like cold sweat, knife in her hand, listening to the lullaby fade. Then, as if the city itself had leaned close to whisper in her ear, she heard again the dead man's words: "The crimson gutter is hungry." Chapter 2. Soup, Silk, and Secrets. Morning in Talabheim was not a new day so much as a different shade of misery. The rain had thinned to a wet mist that clung to the crater's walls and turned every surface into a smear. Smoke from 1,000 chimneys lay low, pressed down by the bowl of the city like a lid. Up on the ring roads, fine carriages rolled with their curtains drawn, wheels whispering over clean stone. Down in Dockwood, the streets sweated sewage and yesterday's violence, and the mist carried the stink of old canals and damp wool. Rika Voss watched the Velvet Mercy Foundation from across the square, tucked beneath the sagging awning of a shuttered cobbler's shop. She had not slept. Sleep made you soft, and softness got girls dragged into storm drains while someone hummed them a lullaby. The building looked wrong in daylight, too straight, too scrubbed, too proud of itself. Fresh paint, new timber, windows that weren't fogged with grease. A charity in Dockwood that didn't look like it had been built out of salvaged guilt and desperation. Even the lanterns outside were polished brass, their glass uncracked. The sign's letters curled like a lover's fingers, red as wet lips. The Velvet Mercy Foundation. Girls and women lined up again, patient as penitents. Some had bruises, some had the hollow cheeks of hunger. All of them had hope in their eyes, which was the cruelest thing you could feed someone in the Empire. Rika's knife was hidden under her coat, but she felt its weight like a heartbeat. She had followed the blood trail last night until darkness swallowed it. She had stood at the mouth of the storm drain until the lullaby faded and the rain filled in the silence. Then she had done what she always did when a door did not open. She had looked for another way in. Infiltration required theater. In Dockwood, the part of a desperate woman was one Rika could play without effort. She had lived it. But the Foundation's doorway did not admit predators. It admitted prey. She dirtied herself deliberately. Soot on the cheeks, damp hair uncombed, a bruise painted with the heel of a boot, and a little spit. She tore a seam in her skirt and let the hem drag through a puddle so it would stink of canal water. She rubbed her hands raw with grit until they looked like hands that had been doing hard work for no coin. Then she chose a name. Not hers. Never hers. When she stepped out from under the awning and joined the line, she kept her shoulders rounded, her gaze lowered. She adopted the small movements of someone trying to take up less space in the world, because the world had proved it preferred her that way. Around her, women murmured names, prayers, rumors. Soup today, someone said with reverent certainty. They give blankets, another whispered. My cousin got placed in a lord's house, a third murmured, the lie coated in envy and hunger. Real work, clean floors, clean hands. Rika's jaw tightened. Clean hands in Talabheim were rarer than saints. The line shuffled forward. The woman at the door, grey cloak, soft smile greeted each girl as if she truly cared whether they lived. Up close, Rika noticed the details that gave away the lie. The woman's teeth were too white, her hands too smooth, her eyes too steady. Dockwood put tremors in people. Dockwood carved lines into skin. This woman looked like she had never had to bite down on pain just to stand upright. Come in, love, the woman said to the girl ahead of Rika. We'll get you warm. The girl went in and vanished behind the door like a coin dropped into a well. Rika stepped up. The woman's gaze slid over her with a practiced appraisal, ragged hem, bruised cheek, lowered eyes. For a heartbeat, the smile softened as if in pity. Then it sharpened, not in cruelty but in attention. Name? The woman asked. Rika kept her voice small. Elsie? It was a stupid name. Common. Forgettable. The kind of name men forgot the moment they'd paid for it. The woman nodded. Elsie, you're welcome here. No one will hurt you in Velvet Mercy. The words landed wrong. Too certain. Like a promise written in ink that would not wash away, Rika dipped her head and stepped through. Warmth hit her like a slap. Not the honest warmth of a hearth in a poor home, smoky, uneven, full of coughs and damp. This was controlled warmth, the kind that came from brazier coals tended by servants who knew their place. The air smelled of perfume layered over disinfectant, rosewater trying to smother rot. Soft music drifted somewhere, strings plucked gently, a melody slow enough to soothe, pretty enough to make you forget the street. The floorboards were clean, not merely swept, scrubbed. The walls were hung with cloth in rich tones, deep reds and velvety purples, softer than anything Dockwood should possess. Candles burned in glass holders, their flames steady, their wax unspilled. It felt like stepping into a noble's dream of poverty. Women moved through the hall with bowls of soup, the steam rising thick and fragrant. Real meat, or something close enough. Herbs, pepper. The scent made stomachs growl all around. Enrica felt her own body betray her with a sudden pang of hunger. She hated herself for it. A girl in a clean apron offered her a bowl with a smile that looked rehearsed. "Sit, love. Eat. You're safe." Rika took the bowl. It was warm enough to sting her palms. She forced herself to sip, keeping her movements slow, acting hungry but not suspicious. The soup tasted good, too good. It coated her tongue in fat and spice. It tasted like indulgence. Around her, women ate with frantic gratitude, tears mixing with broth. Some laughed softly in disbelief. A few stared into their bowls as if expecting the soup to vanish if they blinked too hard. On the far wall hung a row of plaques, donations, benefactors, patrons, names carved in gilt script. Rika caught glimpses. Minor noble houses, guildmasters, merchants with too much coin and too little conscience. The foundation did not merely feed the poor. It displayed the charity like jewelry. A door to the side opened, and a man stepped out in a dark coat, his hair oiled neatly back. He moved with the unhurried precision of someone who counted everything. His eyes swept the hall, taking stock not of soup bowls but of faces. Brother Halbrecht, Rika thought without knowing why. The name came to her like a whisper from some old memory. Or perhaps it was simply the way he looked, like a man who belonged to an order that measured worth in quiet ledgers. He spoke to a woman in an apron, murmured instructions, and drifted away. Where he passed, the air seemed to tighten, the chatter dimming like a candle in wind. Rika set her bowl down and wiped her mouth. She forced her gaze to drift, curious but not overt, looking for exits, watching who watched. At the back of the hall, a curtained archway led deeper into the building. Two women stood near it in clean cloaks, their hands folded. Their posture was too straight, their stillness too practiced. Gods, but dressed as caretakers. Rika rose and moved, as if to fetch more bread, letting herself drift toward the archway. A caretaker intercepted her gently. "Not that way, love," the woman said, still smiling. "Sorry," Rika murmured, shrinking back. The caretaker's smile did not change, but her eyes narrowed a fraction. "Eat, rest. We'll call you when it's time." "What time?" Rika asked, keeping her voice timid. "Time for mercy," the caretaker said, as if that explained anything. Her hand, warm, firm, guided Rika back toward the benches. Rika sat again, forcing herself to swallow another mouthful of soup she no longer wanted. The soft music continued, a patient thread weaving through the hall. Then the air shifted. It was subtle, like the moment before a storm breaks. When everything holds its breath, people began to turn their heads, not because they were told to, but because something in the room demanded it. From the curtained archway came a woman. She was tall, her hair gathered neatly, her clothing simple but of fine quality, dark velvet trimmed with modest lace. She moved with unhurried grace, as if the world made space for her without needing to be asked. Her face was not young, but it was carefully preserved, the kind of beauty that had been maintained by choices and luxuries, not luck. Her eyes were pale and attentive, the color of frost over deep water. She smiled, and the hall seemed to brighten around it. "My poor loves," she said, voice smooth as silk, carrying without strain. "You are safe here." The women around Rika bowed their heads, some whispering blessings, others simply stared, hungry not for soup now but for approval. Rika kept her gaze lowered. She did not trust pretty things in Dockwood. The woman approached slowly, pausing to touch a shoulder here, lift a chin there, murmuring soft words. The effect was immediate. Trembling eased, shoulders uncurled, eyes softened. Mother Sibilant, Rika realized. The name fit the way her voice wrapped around the air. Mother Sibilant stopped near Rika's bench. Rika's pulse did not quicken. She had trained herself out of that, but something cold slid through her gut, an instinctive warning, like the sensation of a knife's edge near skin. A shadow fell across the table. Rika waited, still, small, pathetic. Mother Sibilant spoke gently. "And you, love, you look as though the city has chewed you and spat you back out." Rika forced a quiet nod. It's been hard." "What is your name?" Mother Sibilant asked. Rika hesitated the exact amount a desperate woman would hesitate. "Elsie." Mother Sibilant's hand reached out and brushed 2 fingers along Rika's cheek, lingering at the edge of the fake bruise. The touch was light, almost affectionate, but it made Rika's skin crawl as if something had crawled beneath it. "Elsie," Mother Sibilant repeated, tasting the lie like wine. Her smile never wavered, but her eyes sharpened with recognition. "No, that won't do." Rika kept her face slack. I don't understand." Mother Sibilant leaned closer, her perfume thick as a shroud. "I know you," she murmured softly, so only Rika could hear. "You have a particular way of holding your shoulders when you think no one is watching, a particular stillness in the hands. You are not here for soup." Rika met her gaze then, slowly, letting a flicker of confusion show just enough to be believable. Mother Sibilant's eyes held hers with unsettling intimacy. Then, as if in kindness, she smiled more warmly. "Come," she said aloud, turning so the hall could hear. "This one needs special care. She's been through so much." A few women glanced up, envious. Special care meant better blankets, better work, perhaps even placement in a noble's house. Rika's mind calculated fast and merciless. If she refused, she would be watched. If she went, she might find the heart of the thing. Either way, Lysa was already in the dark below, dragged by a masked figure humming. Rika stood. Mother Sibilant led her through the curtained archway. The soft music faded behind them, muffled by cloth. The corridor beyond was narrower, lined with clean boards and more velvet hangings. Lamps burned in wall sconces, their light warm and flattering. The smell here was stronger perfume layered over something medicinal. They passed doors. Rika listened as they walked, faint murmurs from behind some, quiet sobbing from behind others. At one door, she caught the thin sound of humming. Not the lullaby from last night, but the same kind of gentle rhythm. Mother Sibilant stopped at a side room and opened the door. Inside was an office, a neat desk, shelves of bound books, more plaques, more donor lists, a small shrine in the corner, not to Sigmar or Ulrich, but to something abstract. A stylized heart pierced by a needle, surrounded by curling lines that could be vines or veins, depending on how you looked. Rika filed it away. Mother Sibilant gestured to a chair. "Sit, love," Rika sat, keeping her posture slumped. Mother Sibilant took the seat behind the desk and folded her hands. Her nails were clean and pale, without polish. That detail felt deliberate, as if she wished to appear humble. "You have come back to us," Mother Sibilant said softly. Rika blinked. "I've never been here." Mother Sibilant's smile widened, not with humor but with certainty. "Oh, you have. Not in this form, not with this name, but you have always been close to Velvet Mercy, even when you ran in the gutters and pretended you were free." Rika forced a shaky breath. "I don't know what you mean." Mother Sibilant's eyes drifted to Rika's hands. "Your hands say otherwise." Rika curled her fingers slightly, hiding calluses that were not from scrubbing floors. Mother Sibilant stood. "No matter. You are here now, and you are hurt." She moved toward a second door behind the desk. "We will tend to you properly." Rika's muscles tensed under her ragged cloak. She let her face remain frightened. Fear was expected. It was useful. Mother Sibilant opened the door, revealing stairs descending into dimness. The air that rose from below was warmer, damper. It smelled of herbs, alcohol, and something sweet that made Rika's mouth water despite herself. "Down," Mother Sibilant said gently, and began to descend. Rika followed. The stairs led to a basement corridor lit by low lamps. The walls here were stone, older than the repaired timber above. Water stained the corners. The sound of dripping echoed, a slow, patient metronome. They passed a doorway, where a man in a clean apron stood, his sleeves rolled up. His hands were stained not with blood, but with dark tincture. He nodded to Mother Sibilant, without looking at Rika, as if she were a sack of flour. The corridor opened into a clinic. Rows of narrow beds lined the room, each occupied by a woman or man wrapped in clean blankets. Some stared at the ceiling with dreamy smiles, lips parted, eyes unfocused. Others giggled softly at nothing, their fingers stroking the air as if touching invisible silk. A few wept quietly, but even their tears looked slow, languid, as if sorrow had been softened into something almost pleasant. A physician moved between beds, a woman with tired eyes and ink-stained fingers. She checked pulses, dabbed foreheads with cloth, murmured reassurance. Her gaze flicked to Rika, held for a fraction too long, then slid away. There was recognition there, or fear, or both. On a table near the far wall sat trays of small glass vials filled with liquid that caught lamplight in honeyed glints. The air was thick with the scent of it, sweet, intoxicating, cloying. Mother Sibilant walked among the beds as if among flowers. "We tend to the wounded," she said softly. "We take away their pain." Rika watched a man on a bed smile with bliss as a caretaker dripped tincture onto his tongue. His pupils dilated, his breathing slowed. The muscles in his jaw loosened as if he had forgotten how to clench. Pliant, Rika thought. Not healed, not safe, just softened. Mother Sibilant stopped beside the table of vials and lifted one delicately. "This," she said, "is mercy. Drink, and the hunger stops. Drink, and the fear becomes a distant memory." Rika kept her face frightened, but inside her mind sharpened into a blade. This was not charity. This was harvesting. "Why are you showing me this?" Rika asked, voice trembling. Mother Sibilant turned, her pale eyes bright. "Because you will be part of it," she whispered, "and because you cannot help yourself. You are drawn to us, as all hungry things are drawn to food." Behind Mother Sibilant, Near a shelf of folded linens, Rika's gaze caught something. Bound ledgers stacked neatly, their spines labeled in tidy ink. Not coin books, too many. Too thick, too often handled. Her chance. Rika let her knees wobble as if weak. I don't feel well. Mother Sibilant's smile softened. Of course you don't. Come, sit. She gestured toward an empty bed. Rika moved clumsily, swaying, and as she did she stumbled just enough. Her hand shot out to catch herself against the shelf. Her fingers brushed the top ledger. Mother Sibilant reached toward her, but Rika was already sinking onto the bed, feigning dizziness. "Sorry," she whispered. "It's all right," Mother Sibilant murmured. "It will pass." Rika lowered her head, as if exhausted. Her mind raced. She needed time. She needed distance. She needed to get into that office above, where she could search without the heavy sweetness of tinctures clouding her thoughts. A caretaker approached with a vial. Rika's throat tightened. She forced herself to lift trembling hands. "No," she whispered. "Please, I don't like medicine." The caretaker hesitated, glancing to Mother Sibilant. Mother Sibilant's gaze rested on Rika like a hand on the back of the neck. "You will," she said softly. "You will learn to love it." Rika let her eyes fill with tears easy enough. When rage was close, she pressed her palms to her face as if sobbing, hiding the way her jaw set. Mother Sibilant leaned in, voice a private caress. "Rest now. We will speak again. And do not try to run, love." Her breath was warm against Rika's ear. "You do not run well when you are hungry." Mother Sibilant straightened and drifted away, leaving Rika watched by caretakers whose smiles never reached their eyes. Rika lay still for long minutes, letting the room's rhythm settle. Dripping water, soft giggles, murmured prayers. She watched patterns. Who looked where? When the caretakers turned. When the physician moved past and lingered near a different bed, her back briefly blocking the view. When the moment came, Rika moved. She slid off the bed like a shadow slipping under a door. She kept her head low, shoulders hunched, pretending to be just another meek sufferer seeking a latrine. One caretaker reached out as if to guide her. Rika flinched and whispered, "Toilet." With the right mix of shame and urgency, the caretaker waved her on. Rika found the stairs and climbed, each step measured. At the top, she slipped through the office door behind the desk, Mother Sibilant's office, because she had memorized the route. The room was empty. The corridor beyond was quiet. Rika moved fast now, predator again. She went to the shelves and pulled down a ledger. The paper was thick, expensive, ink neat, consistent, not the scrawl of dockwood. The first pages were lists, names, ages, districts. Beside them, marks that were not coins. Placement, kettle house, upper ring, delivery, canal cart, midnight, choir, rehearsal, third bell, below, donor attendance, masked salon, sixth night. Rika's stomach tightened. Bodies, not charity. Lives reduced to neat categories. She flipped pages faster. The words blurred into a sickening pattern. The poor were not fed. They were catalogued, moved, prepared, rehearsed, rehearsed. Rika's fingers found a loose page tucked near the back, half detached, as if meant to be removed. She pulled it free and held it up to the lamp. A list of names in red ink, each followed by a date. Her breath caught when she saw it. Rika Voss, not Elsie. Not any false name. Rika Voss, written cleanly, confidently, as if whoever had penned it had never doubted. And beside it, a date from years ago. Years before she had ever stepped foot in Talabheim. years before she had ever learned the streets of Dockwood, before she had ever sold herself behind the hanged pike, before she had ever learned to hold a knife without shaking. The paper trembled in her hand. For a moment the warm, perfumed air felt thin, as if the building had stolen her breath. The soft music from the hall below drifted up faintly, the melody turning suddenly, unmistakably, into the shape of a lullaby. Rika stared at her own name on the page and felt something cold uncoil inside her, like a sleeping thing waking. Behind her, somewhere in the corridor, a floorboard creaked, slow, deliberate, and Mother Sibilant's voice, soft as velvet, floated toward the office door. "Love," she called gently, "where have you gone?" Chapter 3. The Crater's Underbelly. Mother Sibilant's voice drifted closer, soft as velvet and just as suffocating. "Love," she called again, not raising it, not needing to. "Where have you gone?" Rika stood very still in the office with a stolen page clenched between her fingers. Her own name bled up at her in red ink, Rika Voss, followed by a date that did not belong to her life. The paper felt hot, as if it carried fever. A floorboard sighed in the corridor. Not the random complaint of old timber, this was a measured step, patient and unhurried. Whoever walked did not need to hurry. They knew the building. They knew the exits. They knew where the prey would bolt. Rika slid the page inside her bodice, against skin, where it would not be easily taken. Her hand found the knife under her cloak. She listened. There were always rhythms in places like this, patterns that gave you the thin edge of a chance. The hall's soft music continued out front. In the corridor, the faint shuffle of caretakers. Somewhere below, the drip-drip of water in the basement, steady as a pulse. Mother Sibilant was not alone. Rika could hear it in the silence between steps. Another set, lighter, keeping distance. The kind of movement that meant a blade hand, not a comforting one. Rika moved, not toward the office door, too obvious. She crossed to the window behind the desk. The glass was clean, but the rain misted it from outside. The latch was simple. She lifted it with 2 fingers, eased the window up just enough to slip a hand through, then pushed it higher. Cold air knifed in, carrying Dockwood's stink and the honest violence of the street. Below was a narrow back courtyard, slick with rain. A cart sat under a lean-to, covered in a tarpaulin. A drain pipe ran down the wall, thick enough to grip. Rika swung one leg out, then the other, letting her boots find the outer sill. The building's repaired timbers creaked softly. She paused, balanced like a cat, then dropped. She hit the courtyard hard, knees bending to drink the impact. Pain flared up her thighs. She welcomed it. Pain meant she was still in her own body, still in control. The window above shifted. A shadow passed over it. Rika did not look back. She ran. She vaulted the cart, splashed through shallow puddles, and slipped through a gap in the courtyard fence where new boards met old rot. Behind her, the foundation remained warm and perfumed, a lantern in the fog. Ahead, Dockwood swallowed her like a mouth. She vanished into the city's wet arteries. By mid-afternoon, the rain returned in earnest, heavier, as if Talabheim had decided the mist had been too merciful. Rika kept moving through the lower districts until she was sure no one tailed her in the open. But fear did not leave with distance. It clung like damp wool. She had learned long ago that when something with money and patience wanted you, it did not need to chase. It only needed to wait in the right places. She passed under bridges where canal water burped at stone. She passed shrines to Sigmar and Tal, their candles guttering in the wet, their offerings spoiled by rain. She passed the boundary where dockward bled into the sewer-lane streets that sat lower than they should, slumping towards grates that breathed warm air like diseased lungs. And always she felt it, the foundation behind her, not as a building but as a presence, a hand that did not touch yet, but hovered close enough to make skin crawl. She needed answers, the way she needed air. The page with her name was an answer that made no sense, which meant it was not an answer, it was a hook. Hungry things did not show you a hook unless they were sure you would bite. So Rika did what she had done all her life. When trapped in a room with no doors, she went down. The crater's underbelly was not a single place, but a succession of depths. Talabheim had been built and rebuilt, always piling stone on stone, always digging new channels when old ones clogged, always burying mistakes rather than clearing them. The Undercity was a layered corpse. Old streets bricked over, cellars turned into tunnels, drainage channels widened into passages, passages swallowed into sewers. There were places beneath the city where you could walk for an hour and still hear the life above, muffled like a prayer under water. There were deeper places where the city's sounds disappeared entirely, leaving only drip and scuttle and your own breathing. At the edge of a canal district, Rika found a grate wide enough to drop through. It sat behind a tanner's yard, where the smell of treated hides was strong enough to make eyes water and keep casual foot traffic away. She lifted the grate with her knife as leverage, muscles straining, then lowered herself into the dark. Heat rose at once, damp and sour. The air tasted of rot and old piss, of mold and fat. Her boots landed in shallow water that sucked at soles. Somewhere, unseen, a rat squealed. Rika pulled the grate back into place above her, leaving only a thin line of gray daylight. Then she lit a stub of tallow candle and started walking. The tunnel sloped downward. Water ran along the channel in the middle, carrying the city's refuse with slow determination. The walls were slick. The stone was old enough to have forgotten the hands that laid it. After a time the tunnel widened, and with it came a sound that did not belong to sewers. Voices, not echoes, not distant shouts. A crowd? Rika extinguished her candle and moved forward in darkness, guided by sound and the faint glow ahead. When she reached the opening, she saw why. A sewer crawl market had grown in an old junction chamber where several tunnels met. Lanterns hung from iron hooks driven into brick, their flames protected in glass cages smeared with grease. Their light was dim and yellow, but it was enough to show commerce, and commerce made its own kind of courage. Stalls had been hacked together out of pallets and driftwood. Men in patched coats sold bundles of stolen cloth. Women with scarred hands sold sacks of grain that smelled faintly of mildew but still filled bellies. A priest, if he was a priest, sat behind a makeshift altar, offering blessings in exchange for coin, his holy symbols suspiciously unrecognizable. In one corner, a butcher chopped something pale on a block, the meat too long and thin to be pig. People moved here with their heads low and their eyes sharp. In the Undercity, a smile could be a promise or a threat, and often both. Rika slid into the crowd, keeping her hood up. She listened first. Undermarkets were fed by gossip the way gutters were fed by rain. Someone always knew who had been taken, who had been bought, who had been seen walking somewhere they shouldn't. A ragpicker with a twisted leg muttered about the new charity topside. A man with missing teeth spat and said, "They pay good for bodies." A girl with a knife at her hip laughed and said, "They don't pay. They feed. That's worse." Rika moved through the stalls until she found the man she wanted. He sat on an upturned barrel near a lantern, one eye cloudy and half-lidded, the other sharp as a tack. His beard was thin and wet. A scar ran from his temple down into the corner of his mouth, giving him a permanent sneer. He watched the market like a crow watches a battlefield. Joost Ketter. Rika had not seen him in years, but Darkwood did not have a wide catalogue of men who could guide you through the city's intestines without getting you killed. Jost had always known the drains and forgotten tunnels, had always known which grates opened into watch barracks and which opened into rat pits. He traded in roots, secrets, and the occasional corpse. Rika approached him without haste. His good eye slid to her. "Well," he said, voice rough, as if he had swallowed gravel, "if it isn't little Rika." Rika stopped just out of arm's reach. "You remember me? Hard to forget a girl who bit a man's ear off in the alley behind the hanged pike." His mouth twitched. "You look worse." "I look alive," she said. "That's enough." Jost's gaze flicked over her, measuring the stance, the hands, the way her weight sat ready. "You came down here for a reason," he said. "People don't visit the crawl unless they're desperate or stupid." "Then call me desperate," Rika said. "I need a guide." Jost gave a soft, humorless snort. "Guide to where? There's a lot of places under Talabheim you don't come back from." Rika leaned in slightly, lowering her voice. "The Velvet Mercy Foundation." At the name, something changed. Not surprise, recognition. A tightening around his mouth, a flicker in his good eye. Jost stared past her for a moment, as if checking the shadows behind her. Then he spat into the water at his feet. "That's topside." "It doesn't end topside," Rika said. "It ends in the drains." Jost scratched his jaw. "I don't like that charity. Too clean. Too many people vanish after they go in." He lifted his cloudy eye toward her. "And you don't look like you're here to rescue anyone out of kindness." Rika's fingers brushed the hidden page in her bodice. "I'm here because they wrote my name in their books." Jost's good eye narrowed. "That's so. They have girls," Rika said, and her voice hardened. "They have Lysa. They took Mira." Jost's expression went flat. "Mira's the little one with the sharp tongue?" Rika nodded once. He blew out a breath through his nose. "Coin." Rika reached into her pocket and produced a small pouch. It clinked softly. "Not much, but enough to persuade a man who valued breathing." Jost did not take it yet. "There's other prices," he said. "You go looking for foundations under Talabheim. You find things that don't like to be found. Then you can stay here," Rika said, "and I'll find someone else." Jost watched her for a long moment. Then he reached out and took the coin pouch, weighing it. "You always did have a talent for making bad ideas sound like work," he muttered. "Fine, but you do what I say when we're in the dark. Understand? You panic, you die. You argue, you die. You try to be a hero, I die." Rika finished. "I know the rules." Jost rose, pulling his coat tighter. "Come on then. Down we go." They left the market through a side tunnel where the lantern light didn't reach. Jost moved with a limping confidence, his boots finding dry stones in the stream's edge, as if he had placed them there himself. Rika followed, eyes adjusting, senses stretched tight. The tunnels changed as they descended, older brick giving way to rough-cut stone, then to sections where the walls were patched with different eras of work. Some passages bore the faded marks of old guilds, others carried prayer scratches, crude Sigmarite symbols, pleas for mercy, names of the dead. Here and there, shrines had been built into alcoves and then swallowed by run-off little heaps of stones with candles long melted into waxy lumps, offerings of bone and copper half buried in slime. At one such shrine, Jost paused and spit again. "Used to be an Ulrich altar," he muttered, back when Midland folk had enough pride to drag their gods down with them. Now it's just a place to dump rat carcasses. Rika's candlelight flickered over the stones. Something was carved into the wall above the shrine, an old symbol, mostly eroded. It looked like a heart, perhaps, or perhaps a mouth. They moved on. Eventually Jost stopped at a junction where 4 tunnels met. He held up a hand. Rika froze. Jost crouched and pointed at the brick near the floor. There, half hidden by grime and water stains, was a smear of paint crimson, fresh enough to shine faintly even in the dim light. It wasn't random, it was deliberate. A short stroke, angled like an arrow. Rika's stomach tightened. Jost traced it with a finger without touching. "You see these?" he whispered. "Been showing up in the last month. Red paint, like a gutter wound. Folks call it the Crimson Gutter Mark." Rika's mouth went dry. "It's a map." Jost's good eye flicked to her. "Aye. Not one you read in one place." He stood and limped into one tunnel, candle held low. "You follow the marks, you get a route, but only if you see them in sequence." They followed. The marks appeared every few turns, sometimes a stroke, sometimes a dot and line pattern, sometimes a curved flourish, like a smile. Each was placed where only someone moving through the Undercity would notice, low on a wall, behind a pipe, under a ledge. The paint was the same deep crimson as the Foundation sign, too vivid to be accidental. As they progressed, the tunnels grew narrower. The air warmed, thick with damp. The sound of the city above faded until all that remained was water and their breathing and the occasional distant clatter of something moving unseen. Rika began to feel watched. It wasn't sight, there were too many angles, too much darkness. It was the sensation of presence, of attention sliding along skin. She kept her knife ready, her thumb resting against the blade's spine. Jost slowed near another junction. He held his candle up and squinted at the wall. A crimson mark curved upward, like a beckoning finger. "This way," he whispered. They turned, and the tunnel widened into an old service passage lined with iron brackets, as if it once held pipes that had since been ripped out. The floor here was less flooded, the stone slick but passable. The air carried a different smell now, not just sewage, but perfume, faint and sweet, like rosewater trying to cover decay. Rika's pulse hammered once, hard. "Stop," she breathed. Jost halted, head turning. "What is it?" Rika listened. At first there was nothing but drip and the hush of their candle flame. Then a faint sound, soft, rhythmic, a humming, not loud enough to locate, but unmistakable. Rika's throat tightened. The lullaby from the storm drain, the same obscene tenderness. Jost's face hardened. He spat once more, but this time the gesture looked like warding. "We're close," he muttered, "and I don't like it." The humming stopped. Silence fell like a blade, and in that silence the air moved. 2 figures stepped out of the darkness ahead, as if the tunnel itself had birthed them. They wore masks, pale and smooth, with painted smiles. Their clothing was dark, tight-fitting, suited for movement, and it glimmered faintly with damp, as if oiled. They moved, not like thugs but like dancers taking their places on a stage. Then 2 more appeared behind them, cutting off the retreat. Another pair emerged from a side notch in the wall, silent as breath. The choir. Rika felt the ambush snap shut around them. Jost swore under his breath and drew a short blade from his belt. His hand shook slightly, not from fear but from pain, old injuries speaking. The choir did not speak. They simply raised their weapons, and Rika saw what they carried. Hooked blades, curved like butcher's tools, Thin garrotes coiled around fingers like ribbons, a few lengths of chain that glinted wetly. They advanced in pairs, graceful, coordinated. Each pair moved like a single creature with 4 hands. One would feint, the other would strike. One would distract, the other would slip behind. Rika stepped sideways, putting her back near the wall so nothing could come from behind without scraping stone. Her knife felt suddenly small. The first pair came at her. The hooked blade flashed, arcing for her throat. Rika ducked, felt air move where steel had been. The second choir member snapped a garrote out, the wire singing faintly as it cut through damp air. Rika twisted, letting the wire skim her shoulder instead of her neck. Pain flared, sharp and hot. The wire bit through cloth, drew blood. The choir member pulled, trying to catch her like a fish. Rika surged forward instead, closing distance before the wire could tighten. She slammed her shoulder into the masked face, felt the hard, porcelain-like surface jolt. The choir member staggered back, and Rika drove her knife into the soft gap beneath the ribs. The blade sank in. Warmth spilled over her hand. The masked head tilted, as if curious. Then the second member of the pair came in from the side with the hooked blade, aiming low. Rika leapt back, but the hook caught the edge of her coat and yanked. The force spun her, exposing her flank. Jost shouted, and Rika saw him collide with another pair, his knife flashing. He was fast for a limping man, but they moved around him like silk around a blade. A garrote looped toward his throat. Rika threw herself forward, slashing at the wire. Her knife struck it with a metallic twang, knocking it aside. The choir member shifted instantly, as if they had rehearsed this 100 times. The hooked blade came down toward Rika's forearm. Rika caught it on her own knife, steel kissing steel. The impact jarred her arm. The choir member leaned in, mask smiling inches from her face, and whispered, not with their voice, but with their breath, "Come home." The words slipped under her skin like rot. Rika snarled and kicked hard, heel connecting with the masked figure's knee. There was a crack. The figure folded, balance broken, and Rika slashed up, opening the seam between collar and jaw. Blood sprayed. Dark in candlelight, the remaining choir members did not panic. They adjusted, flowing around the fallen like water finding new channels. Just took a hook blade to the side. It cut through coat and flesh, and he cried out, stumbling. His blood spilled onto the stone, bright and immediate. Rika's vision narrowed. She moved without thinking, driven by the simple fact that dying here would mean being dragged away, catalogued, placed. She could not allow that. She grabbed Jost by the collar and hauled him backward, forcing space. She slashed at a garrote hand, slicing fingers. The wire snapped loose and whipped away, singing. A choir member lunged. Rika met them with her shoulder again, then drove her knife into the thigh. The figure buckled, but their partner was already behind Rika, wire sliding toward her neck. Rika felt it brush her skin cold, delicate. Her scar an old mark on her ribs, half hidden beneath cloth, suddenly pulsed with heat. The sensation was so sharp it stole her breath. It was as if something inside her had been touched by a hot needle. Her skin warmed, then burned, the pain blooming outward in a tight ring. The garrote tightened and then hesitated, as if the hand pulling it had faltered. Rika did not question it. She dropped her weight, slipped under the wire, and drove her elbow back into the choir member's ribs. Something cracked. The figure staggered. "Move," she hissed at Jost. He clutched his bleeding side, teeth bared. "Where?" Rika's eyes flicked desperately along the tunnel walls. Crimson paint, a mark low on the brick, 2 lines crossing like an X, half hidden by slime. An escape route? Or a trap? Rika chose it because choice was an illusion and hesitation was death. She shoved Jost toward the marked passage. He stumbled into it, nearly falling. Rika followed, slashing behind her to keep the dancers at bay. The choir did not rush. They pursued with patient certainty, humming now softly, in unison, a lullaby that seemed to ripple through the bricks themselves. Rika and Jost plunged into the side tunnel. It narrowed quickly, forcing them single file. The air grew warmer, the walls sweating. Behind them, the humming followed like a scent. Jost's breath came ragged. Blood soaked his coat, making it cling. He gasped. They're not just people, I know, Rika snapped, and then her scar flared again, a hot ache that made her stumble mid-step. She pressed a hand to her ribs through the cloth. The mark, something she had carried since childhood without ever understanding, felt alive. It throbbed in time with the distant humming, as if responding to it, as if recognizing the song. A signal, she thought wildly. A call. Come home, the masked voice had whispered. Rika's stomach turned with cold fury. She half-dragged Jost onward through the sweating dark, while the lullaby curled behind them, gentle as a mother's hand and hungry as a gutter. And with every step deeper into Talabheim's underbelly, the old scar burned warmer, like something awakening, like a lock beginning to turn. Chapter 4. Velvet Chains. Talabheim's undercity did not forgive. It remembered every footfall and paid it back with rot, with slick stone that shifted under weight, with low ceilings that forced the proud to bow. Rika and Jost fled through passages that grew narrower and hotter, their candle guttering as damp air strangled flame. Behind them the humming persisted, soft, patient, perfectly unhurried, threading through tunnels like perfume through cloth. Jost's breath rasped. His coat was heavy with blood, the fabric clinging to his ribs where the hooked blade had bitten. He stumbled at every third step, one hand pressed hard against his side, as if he could hold himself together by force of will. Rika half-dragged him onward, jaw clenched, scar burning under her ribs in a slow, sick pulse. It was not pain like a wound, it was heat, like a brand being warmed. Each throb matched the lullaby's rhythm, as though something inside her was listening. They reached a junction where the tunnel split into three, one flooded, one collapsed, one marked with a crimson smear low on the wall. Jost's good eye flicked to the mark, and he gave a humorless, wet chuckle. Every road leads to their mouth, he gasped. Then we pick the one with teeth we can count, Rika snapped. She shoved him into the marked passage. It climbed slightly, the air cooling by degrees. The brickwork changed, newer, tighter, maintained. That alone was wrong. Nothing under Dockwood was maintained unless someone had reason. After a dozen turns, the tunnel ended at an iron door set into the wall, a service hatch, old and battered, with a latch that had been oiled recently. Someone used it. Jost sagged against the bricks. His skin had gone waxy. If we go through there, he wheezed, we're either out or in deeper. Rika listened. The humming behind them had softened, distant now, as if the choir had slowed to enjoy the chase. She could almost imagine them standing in the dark with their painted smiles, letting the prey exhaust itself. Rika's fingers found the latch. It lifted too easily. The door swung inward. Warm lamplight spilled out, not bright, but steady. The air beyond smelled of herbs and alcohol and that cloying sweetness she'd tasted in the Foundation's halls. She felt her scar flare hot, a silent yes in her flesh. Rika drew her knife and stepped through. The passage beyond was not a sewer tunnel. It was a corridor of dressed stone, clean enough to show the chisel marks. Lamps burned in glass cages, their flames fed by oil that did not sputter. A faint melody drifted through the air strings, slow and soothing like the upstairs hall, but muted, as if being played behind velvet curtains. Just made a small sound of despair. "We're in their belly," he whispered. Rika closed the iron door behind them, not because she thought it would keep anything out, but because she needed to hear the corridor silence without the sewer's drip. She forced her breathing steady. She could not afford panic. Panic was the first chain they put on you. They moved down the corridor with Jost leaning heavily on her shoulder. The floor was dry. The walls were draped in dark cloth velvet, again swallowing sound and light. The air felt thick, not with damp, but with intention. A door ahead stood ajar. From within came voices, soft, urgent. Rika approached without sound, knife ready, and peered inside. A small room, a table, shelves lined with vials, clean linens folded like offerings, and a woman bent over the table, hands stained with tincture, her hair pinned back severely. Her face was gaunt with exhaustion, her eyes bruised by sleeplessness. She wore a physician's apron, but it was too clean for Dockwood, too fine. The smell of antiseptic clung to her like a confession. Greta Mauer. Rika had seen her once above ground, long ago outside a plague ward, sleeves rolled up, shouting at a priest and a watchman in the same breath. Greta had a reputation. She treated the poor without asking permission and charged what they could pay, which often meant nothing. In Talabheim, that made you a saint or a fool, usually both. Greta looked up sharply at the sound of Rika's boot on stone. Her eyes widened, then narrowed. "Don't," Greta hissed, voice barely above breath. "If you—" Rika stepped into the room. Jost sagged in the doorway, pale and trembling. Greta's gaze snapped to Jost's wound. The physician in her won over fear for half a heartbeat. She moved fast, grabbing cloth and a bottle of clear spirit, but her hands shook. "Sit him," Greta whispered. "By the table. Now." Rika eased Jost down. He grunted, sweat beading. Greta pressed cloth to the cut, then poured spirit over it. Jost swore with sudden life. "Good," Greta muttered. Still loud, her eyes flicked to Rika again. "You shouldn't be here." "I'm already here," Rika said. "And you're helping them." "Unjust." Greta flinched as if struck. Her mouth tightened. For a moment she looked older than her years, like someone whose spine had been bent by too many impossible choices. "I'm forced," Greta whispered. "Don't you think I tried to leave?" Rika's knife remained in her hand. "Explain." Greta's gaze darted toward the doorway, toward the corridor, listening for footsteps. Then she leaned in, voice low and bitter. "They brought me in when the fever hit Dockwood last month," she said. "They offered supplies, clean water, medicine, real medicine." Her lips curled. "And they delivered. People lived. Babies lived. I thought Sigma helped me. I thought they were simply rich fools trying to buy absolution." Rika watched her carefully, reading the truth in the tension of her shoulders. Greta swallowed. "Then I saw the basement." Rika's scar posed. "The cures," Greta continued, voice thick with disgust, "aren't cures. They're conditioning. They soften people, make them receptive. They take hunger and pain and turn it into gratitude." She clenched her stained hands. "They don't heal wounds. They teach the wounded to smile through them." Jost made a choking laugh. "Mercy," he rasped. Greta looked at him with something like pity. "If you refuse, you don't get soup. If you resist, you don't get blankets. If you speak too loudly, you get placed." Her eyes flicked up to Rika, sharp now. "And if I refuse to mix their tinctures, they stop the deliveries to Dockwood. They have stores of grain and clean water. They have wagons. They have coin. They can starve the slums by simply not coming." Rika's jaw clenched until it hurt. Greta leaned closer, voice trembling with controlled rage. "They've made me their mask of virtue. I treat the sick. I soothe the poor. I stand upstairs and tell them they're safe, and downstairs they turn them into something obedient." Rika swallowed heat. "Where are the girls?" Greta's eyes flicked away. "Some are sent above real placements to make the story believable. Most," her throat worked, "most go deeper. There's a route. Old drainage channels that lead beyond the usual sewer crawl. They call it the Crimson Gutter." Hungry, Rika thought. Hungry. She pulled the stolen page from inside her bodice and shoved it toward Greta. "They wrote my name!" Greta's eyes widened as she scanned it. The red ink, the date. Her mouth opened slightly, then closed, as if she had swallowed something sour. "That date," Greta whispered. That's years ago. Before I came here," Rika said, voice flat. "Before I was anything." Greta looked at her with a new kind of fear. Not fear of a knife, fear of a truth she did not want to name. "Then you're not just prey," Greta murmured. "Your purpose." Rika's scar flared again, warm enough to make her gasp. She pressed a hand to her ribs through cloth. The heat felt like a hand beneath the skin, turning slowly, searching, just groaned. "If you've come to rescue someone," he rasped, "do it quick. Before the dancers come back." Greta's eyes snapped to the corridor again. She moved to a shelf and pulled down a small pouch of dried herbs and a vial. "You need to leave. Now. If Mother Sibilant finds..." "She already knows me," Rika said. "She knew me the moment she saw me." Greta's breath hitched. "Then you're walking into a noose." Rika's gaze hardened. "They took Lysa." Greta's face tightened, pain flickering. "I know." Rika stepped close. "Where is she?" Greta hesitated. Then, with a tremor that looked like shame, she gestured toward the far wall, toward a narrow door half hidden behind hanging cloth. "Through there," Greta whispered. "There's a holding room. They keep the ones they're preparing before they send them down. But," her eyes met Rika's, "it's watched." Rika's knife flashed slightly as she adjusted her grip. "Then I'll be quiet." Greta's mouth twisted, as if she wanted to laugh at the idea of quiet saving anyone. "Wait," she said quickly, and pressed the vial into Rika's palm. "If they drug you, if they give you the blessing, this might help. It won't stop it, but it might keep your mind yours." Rika closed her fingers around it. The glass was cool, a thin hope, and she hated it. Jost clutched Rika's sleeve weakly. "Don't," he whispered, his good eye wide. They knew we'd come here." Rika looked at him. The wound had slowed bleeding, but his face was gray. He was not built for heroics. None of them were. The Empire did not breed heroes in gutters. It bred survivors and liars. "I'm not leaving her," Rika said. She pushed through the hidden door. The corridor beyond narrowed. The velvet drapes thickened, swallowing light. The air grew sweeter, more cloying, like perfume poured into a grave. Rika moved with her shoulder close to the wall, knife ready, breath controlled. The passage ended at a chamber with a single lamp and a row of narrow benches. 2 caretakers stood at the far side, clean cloaks, soft smiles, hands folded. Their eyes lifted as Rika entered. No surprise, no alarm, Just recognition. Rika's scar burned. One caretaker spoke gently. There you are, love. Rika stopped. Where is she? The caretaker's smile did not change. You've come to accept mercy. Rika lunged. She moved fast, a shadow with steel, aiming for the caretaker's throat. But the woman stepped aside with graceful ease, as if she had practiced this movement as part of a dance. Rika's knife met empty air. From behind, something hissed. A wire. Rika twisted. Too late. Silver-thin garrote looped toward her neck, but instead of tightening, it snapped around her shoulders, pinning her arms. The force was precise, painful, but controlled. Two masked figures stepped from the shadows at the chamber's edges. Choir. Their painted smiles gleamed in the lamplight. Rika fought like a cornered animal. She drove her elbow back, slammed her head into the arm restraining her. The mask didn't crack. The grip didn't loosen. The choir moved with calm coordination, taking her weight, turning her struggle into something contained. A caretaker approached with a small cup. The scent rising from it made Rika's stomach turn. Sweetness, herbs, and something sharper beneath. No, Rika snarled, wrenching against the wire. The caretaker's smile softened, almost maternal. Hush. It will feel like warmth, like being forgiven. Rika bit at the caretaker's hand. Teeth found skin. The woman hissed, but only in irritation, not pain. Then another presence filled the chamber like a tide. Mother Sibilant stepped in, velvet, whispering, eyes bright as frost. Rika, she said softly, as if greeting a daughter, you really do make everything difficult. Rika bared her teeth. Where is Lysa? Mother Sibilant's gaze drifted over her, calm and appraising. Safe, she said. Safer than she ever was on those streets. Safer than you ever kept her. The words landed like a slap because they were not wholly false. Rika struggled harder. The wire cut into her shoulders. The choir held firm. Mother Sibilant stepped closer, and her perfume wrapped around Rika's breath. You could stop this, she murmured. You could let us care for them. Rika spat. It hit Mother Sibilant's cheek and slid down like rain on marble. Mother Sibilant did not flinch. A caretaker dabbed it away with a cloth. So much rage. Mother Sibilant sighed, almost fond. It's a beautiful thing, rage. It makes you alive. It makes you special. Rika's scarf flared hot enough to make her gasp. Mother Sibilant's eyes flicked to Rika's ribs as if she could see through cloth. Her smile deepened. There it is, she whispered, still answering. Rika's mouth went dry. What do you want from me? Mother Sibilant's voice softened, velvet over iron. A choice. Stop fighting, and velvet mercy will continue. The poor will be fed, the sick will be tended, the slums will be managed. Her gaze sharpened. Resist, and we will close our doors. Grain will rot in locked storehouses, water will be withheld, fevers will run unchecked, and girls will vanish anyway, only without soup first. Rika trembled with fury and cold. Mother Sibilant leaned in, close enough that her breath warmed Rika's ear. We are the difference between hunger and fullness, love, between agony and relief. We can make Dockwood adore us, or we can let it devour itself. Rika stared at her, and in that moment she understood the true obscenity. The cult did not merely prey on poverty, it owned it. It held misery like a leash and pulled whenever it wished. Drink, Mother Sibilant said softly. The caretaker lifted the cup again. Rika clenched her jaw. No, Mother Sibilant's smile remained gentle. Then we'll help. Two fingers pressed at Rika's jaw hinge. a practiced pressure point. Pain lanced, and her mouth opened involuntarily. The cup tipped. The liquid hit her tongue, sweet, thick, warm. It tasted like honey and herbs and something deeper, something that made the back of her skull tingle. It slid down her throat like a promise. Rika tried to spit, but hands held her steady until she swallowed. Heat flooded her chest. Her limbs went heavy. The room's edges softened, velvet bleeding into stone. The lamp's flame stretched and danced like a living thing. Mother Sibilant's voice reached her as if from far away. "There," she murmured. "Mercy." Rika fought to hold herself together, but the tincture was not merely drug, it was instruction. It slid into her thoughts and rearranged the furniture, moving fear to the center and pushing anger to the corners, until it felt distant. Her scar burned like a coal, and then the lullaby began, not from a mouth, not from a corner. It rose from the walls, from the floor, from the liquid in her blood, gentle, intimate, older than the city. Rika's vision tilted. The chamber dissolved into darkness, shot through with crimson reflections. She was standing ankle-deep in water the color of fresh blood. It did not ripple like water. It moved like silk. Above, there was no ceiling, only a black sky that pressed down, heavy and close. Shapes drifted in it, half seen and wrong, like pale fish swimming through smoke. The lullaby hummed through her bones. Ahead stood a ring of figures wearing masks, smooth, pale, smiling, adults, tall. Their hands were joined, forming a circle around something small at the center. A cradle, a bundle, a baby, wrapped in cloth. Rika's breath hitched, but she had no lungs here, only the sensation of breathing. The masked adults began to chant. The words were soft, sibilant, intimate. They did not sound like prayers. They sounded like ownership, and then a name rose from their mouths, like incense. "Rika," they chanted. The sound struck her like a blow. Her own name, spoken as if it had been chosen long before she could protest it. They chanted again, and the crimson water warmed, steaming. The lullaby threaded through the chant, binding it. "Rika! Rika! Rika!" The baby in the cradle stirred, tiny fingers curling. Rika stumbled forward, desperate to reach it, to tear it away, to break the circle, yet her legs moved as if through thick syrup. The masked adults turned their smiling faces toward her in unison. "Come home," they whispered, not with mouths but with the space between words. The crimson water surged, rising. It wrapped around her ankles, her knees, her waist. It felt like velvet. It felt like chains. Her scar burned brighter than anything, a hot point of certainty, a beacon inside her flesh. She tried to scream and woke choking. Silk pressed against her cheek, warm, soft, suffocating. The air smelled of perfume and incense. Lamps glowed behind thin cloth, turning everything gold and wrong. Rika blinked, vision swimming. She lay on a low bed draped in velvet, wrists unbound but heavy, limbs sluggish as if filled with lead. The room was underground. She could feel it in the weight of stone beyond the fabric walls, in the damp that the perfume couldn't fully hide. Shadows moved around her. Voices murmured softly. "Reverend." Rika tried to sit up, but her muscles answered slowly, disobedient. Then she felt its coolness against her throat, a thin loop of silver wire being fitted around her neck, careful and precise. Not tight enough to choke, not crude enough to bruise. It rested there like jewelry, like a lover's gift. Hands adjusted it, fingers deft. Rika's skin crawled. She reached up weakly, fingertips brushing the wire. It was cold, clean, too fine for a shackle. A voice close to her ear, Mother Sibilant's velvet whisper. "Hush, love," she murmured. "This isn't to restrain your body." Rika's scar pulsed warmly, answering. Mother Sibilant's fingers stroked the wire, and Rika felt something inside her shift, a subtle tug behind her eyes, like a hook finding purchase. "It's to restrain your will." Chapter 5. The Assassin's Mirror. Rika woke to velvet and lies. The chamber was warm in a way Talabheim never was, heat held and curated like a secret. Silk drapes hung from iron rings hammered into stone, swallowing corners and turning the room into a soft cage. Lamps burned behind gauze, their light honeyed and flattering, making everything look kinder than it deserved. The air was thick with perfume, rose, myrrh, something sweet enough to rot your teeth, and beneath it all was the damp breath of the Undercity, a reminder that the stone outside the curtains sweated filth regardless of what you draped it with. Her throat felt wrong. Rika lifted a hand. Her arm moved as if through mud. Her fingers found the wire at her neck cool, thin, too delicate to be a shackle, and therefore far worse. It sat like jewelry, like a collar a noble might give a pet. When her fingertips brushed it, a faint pressure pulsed behind her eyes, as if her skull had become a bell, and someone had tapped it gently to hear its tone. She swallowed. The wire didn't tighten. It didn't need to. A low humming drifted through the room, barely audible, more felt than heard. It came from nowhere and everywhere, from the stone itself, vibrating faintly through the bed frame. Her scar under her ribs responded with a warm ache, like a second heartbeat. Rika sat up slowly. Her head swam, but she forced it steady. The room remained empty except for her and the soft curtains and the lingering scent of mercy. No guards stood by the bed. No chains bound her wrists. It was a calculated insult. "We don't need to bind you." "We already did." She swung her legs over the side. Her bare feet touched a rug so thick it felt obscene. Talabheim's poor slept on straw, if they slept on anything. Here, under the city, someone had decided comfort was worth importing. Rika stood. The wire at her neck made her feel strangely attentive, focused, but not in a way she trusted. Her thoughts slid, as if lubricated. Anger rose, and then a soft pressure pushed it down, smoothing it into something less sharp. She clenched her fists until her nails bit palm. Pain helped. Pain was honest. A voice from beyond the curtains, calm as bookkeeping. "You're awake." Rika turned toward it, knife hand empty but ready. "Where's my knife?" The voice gave a small sound that might have been amusement. "Safe." The curtains parted. Brother Halbrecht stepped through as if entering a boardroom, not a dungeon. He wore a dark coat with clean seams, cuffs unfrayed, collar crisp. His hair was oiled back with meticulous care. His hands were bare, pale, and unscarred, the hands of a man who made other people do the bloody work. Behind him came two masked figures of the choir, painted smiles gleaming softly. They moved like paired shadows, perfectly still until needed. Halbrecht's eyes swept over Rika, quick and appraising, as if counting her bones. "How do you feel?" Rika spat on the rug. The spittle sank into the plush fibers without a sound. Halbrecht glanced at it briefly, as if noting an expense. "Still theatrical," he observed. "Good. It means the collar hasn't finished teaching you." Rika's fingers tightened on the wire. A pulse of pressure bloomed behind her eyes, warning, gentle as a hand on a child's shoulder. Halbrecht noticed the movement. "Don't fight it," he said. It only makes the lesson longer." "What lesson?" Rika snarled. Albrecht walked to a low table by the bed. Upon it sat a tray, a cup of warm broth, sliced bread, and a small glass vial that caught lamplight like amber. Mercy served like supper. "You're hungry," he said, as if stating weather. "Everyone is hungry. Talabheim runs on hunger. It keeps the poor obedient and the rich entertained." Rika's stomach betrayed her with a twist. The scent of broth made her mouth water. The collar at her throat warmed faintly, as if pleased by the reaction. Albrecht lifted the cup and held it out, not quite offering, not quite commanding. "Drink." Rika stared at it with hatred so clean it felt like relief. "No." The choir did not move. Albrecht did not frown. He simply waited. The pressure behind Rika's eyes increased, still subtle, still almost kind. Her thoughts blurred at the edges. "It's just broth," a whisper inside her suggested. "Food, warmth, mercy." Rika's jaw locked. She turned her head away, refusing. Albrecht sighed. "You can be difficult, but that's part of why you're valuable." He set the cup down, unhurried. "Mother Sibilant wanted me to speak with you. She believes you respond better to explanations." Rika laughed. "Harsh. Explain how you drag girls into drains and call it mercy." Albrecht's eyes remained steady. "Yes," he said simply. "Exactly that." He moved to one of the curtains and drew it aside. Behind it was stone, not bare, but carved, old masonry, wide and ancient, shaped into a shallow relief map. Rika blinked as her eyes adjusted, then felt cold crawl along her spine. It was Talabheim, not as men drew it in civic halls, with proud towers and neat streets. This was Talabheim's anatomy. The crater's ring roads above, then the lower districts, then the veins and bowels beneath drainage channels, aqueducts, old service tunnels. The lines were engraved deeply, and in their grooves lay dried crimson paint. Albrecht traced a finger along one channel. "The crater is an excellent shape," he said. "It holds sound. It holds heat. It holds crowds." His finger moved downward, following a network of lines under the city. "But the real genius is here. The undercity, the channels, the old drains. They form a lattice." Rika's scar warmed in response. A sick recognition. "A resonator?" Albrecht continued. "A city-wide instrument. Imagine an organ built of brick and waste. Imagine pipes not for air but for sound prayer, crying, laughter, moaning, all the human noises a city makes." His gaze slid to her. "Now, imagine those noises guided, shaped, amplified." Rika's throat tightened. "To do what?" Albrecht's mouth twitched. "To call." He gestured, and one of the choir stepped forward. The masked figure held a small metal tuning fork. It struck it softly against its palm. The note rang. It was not loud. It should not have been loud. But the chamber answered as if the stone itself had been waiting for that tone. The air vibrated. The velvet quivered. The wire at Rika's neck hummed, and the pressure behind her eyes sharpened until she saw sparks of light. Her scar flared hot, like a brand pressed to skin. Rika staggered, grabbing the bedpost. "Stop!" The note faded. The air stilled. Albrecht watched her reaction with clinical satisfaction. "You see," he said. "You feel it. The instrument recognizes its keystone." Rika's breath came fast. She stared at the map, at the crimson grooves. "What am I?" she whispered before she could stop herself. Albrecht smiled, and it was the first time he showed something like pleasure. "A vessel," he said. "A hinge. A tuning point. He folded his hands. We call it a keystone. Rika's stomach twisted. Bullshit. Halbrecht did not react. He spoke the way he might speak about grain shipments. Years ago, our brethren operated elsewhere, not in Talabheim, in quieter lands where nobody noticed a missing infant. His tone remained calm, but Rika saw something in his eyes, a memory of satisfaction. We learned early that power likes patterns, bloodlines, symbols, names spoken over flesh. A child born in the right circumstance, marked in the right way, can become a focal point. Rika's hand drifted unconsciously to her ribs. The scar burned warm, pulsing as if it heard its own mention. Halbrecht nodded, as if confirming a ledger entry. You were taken as a baby, he said, from a breeding program. A crude phrase perhaps, but accurate. We cultivated certain traits, certain sensitivities. He gestured gently toward her collar. That mark on you was made before you had words. Rika's vision swam with sudden images, crimson water, masked adults in a ring, a chant coiling around her infant name like rope. She swallowed bile. Then why am I here? How did I end up in Talabheim's gutters? Halbrecht's expression tightened, slightly annoyance at an unbalanced account. There was interference, he admitted. A raid, a loss. You were stolen from us, moved through hands like contraband. Smugglers, priests, coin. Someone tried to hide you in the Empire's noise. His eyes sharpened. Talabheim is noisy, perfect to lose a child in. Rika's heartbeat hammered. And you found me. Halbrecht smiled again. Of course we did. He turned back to the relief map. We rebuilt around you. Not with walls and mortar, those are easy. We rebuilt with hunger. His finger moved along the undercity lines. We established a foundation, a charity, a place where the desperate line up willingly, where we can catalog them, move them, soften them. The soup, Rika spat. The soup, Halbrecht agreed. The blankets, the warmth. We offer indulgence to those who have been denied it, and indulgence is a lever. It opens mouths, it loosens wills. He looked at her, eyes pale and unblinking. We do not merely recruit, we shape. Rika's lip curled. Into what? Halbrecht's voice softened, almost reverent. A chorus. The word landed like rot. He walked to another curtain and drew it back. A narrow viewing slit, cut into stone, looked down into a larger chamber beyond. The air that drifted through it carried the scent of bodies and perfume and damp. Rika stepped closer despite herself. Below lay a hall carved out of old masonry, wider than a warehouse. Candles burned in niches. Velvet banners hung from columns, and on the floor, arranged in careful rows, sat dozens of people, women, men, some young, some old, dockward faces, hollow cheeks, bruises half-healed, eyes glazed with tincture. They sat with their hands on their knees, posture eerily upright, heads tilted as if listening to a song only they could hear. A caretaker moved among them, touching a forehead here, lifting a chin there. Each touch was answered with a soft smile. At the far end stood a dais where a masked figure raised its hands, and then the chorus began. Not loud, not at first. A low hum, collective, gentle. It vibrated through stone. It slid under skin. It made the collar at Rika's neck warm with pleased recognition. The sound was soothing and wrong, like a lullaby sung by mouths that had forgotten how to say no. Rika's scar flared, and for a heartbeat she felt the hum inside her blood, matching her pulse. Albrecht watched her reaction, satisfied. "They are broken," he said, almost kindly. "Not by us. The city breaks them. We simply tune them." His gaze sharpened. When they sing in the right place, at the right time, the Undercity carries the sound through Talabheim's channels. It resonates. It amplifies. It becomes an instrument. "And I'm the what?" Rika hissed. "The pipe? The bell?" Albrecht's eyes shone. "The focal point," he said. "The keystone. The note the whole city will bend around." Rika trembled, not with fear, but with rage so sharp it cut. "You want to use me to call whatever you worship?" Albrecht's smile widened. "Not worship," he corrected gently. "Invitation." Rika's stomach churned. She imagined the crater city filled with that humming, every drain a mouth, every gutter a vein, every poor throat an instrument. She imagined something listening from beyond the veil, attracted by the city's exquisite misery and manufactured mercy. She had killed men for coin. She had done ugly things to survive, but this was uglier because it wore kindness like a mask. Rika's gaze slid across the room. Silk, lamps, velvet. The indulgence was a weapon. The cult had built an entire theater to seduce the desperate. Albrecht returned to the table, lifted the amber vial, and held it up. "We can make this easy," he said. "You cooperate. We care for your people. Dockwood becomes manageable, fed, quiet. There will be no more riots, no more starvation, no more plague." His eyes narrowed. "Or you resist, and we let the slums suffer. We have already arranged the shortages. The watch will look away. The grain wagons will break at the wrong bridges. The wells will be contaminated." He shrugged slightly. "You know how fragile the poor are. They fall apart with a whisper." Rika's scar pulsed warmly, as if the collar enjoyed the helplessness the words tried to feed her. Albrecht leaned closer. "And you," he murmured, "will stop fighting, one way or another." Rika stared at him. Something in her mind tried to soften, tried to accept, tried to sink into the warm syrup of surrender. She bit down on the inside of her cheek until she tasted blood. Pain cut through the haze. The collar's pressure flickered, surprised by resistance. Rika smiled, a thin, ugly thing. "You talk too much," she said. Albrecht blinked. "Excuse me?" Rika moved. Not at him, not at the choir, at the lamp. She kicked the low table hard. The tray skittered. The broth cup flew, splashing hot liquid across velvet. The lamp toppled, oil spilling in a slick arc. The flame caught it instantly. Fire bloomed. Velvet drank oil like thirst. The drapes went up with a hungry whoosh, flames crawling across cloth, turning soft luxury into a roaring beast. Smoke punched into the room, thick and black, stinging eyes, swallowing the honeyed light. The choir reacted a heartbeat too slow, trained for obedience and beauty, not chaos. Rika lunged for Albrecht. He stepped back, reaching inside his coat, perhaps for a knife, perhaps for a signal. Rika slammed her shoulder into him, driving him into the stone map wall. His breath whooshed out. She reached for the collar at her throat, yanked it forward, and jammed its thin wire under his chin. Albrecht's eyes widened in sudden, honest fear. "Keys," Rika snarled, voice low and vicious. "Where are they?" The collar thrummed, resisting her aggression, trying to smooth it. Rika forced it down with pain, digging the wire harder. Albrecht choked. His hands fumbled, not graceful now, just human. He pointed weakly toward the desk drawer, an inlaid cabinet half hidden by drapes now burning. Rika shoved him away, grabbed the drawer, and ripped it open. Inside lay a ring of small keys and a thin silver tool, like a hook. Behind her, the choir moved, gliding through smoke. Rika snatched the keys, then smashed her elbow into the nearest mask. The porcelain-like surface cracked with a satisfying snap. The figure staggered, soundless, its painted smile broken into jagged lines. Rika seized the silver tool and hooked it under her collar's clasp at the back of her neck, twisting blindly. The collar pulsed, pressure surging behind her eyes, trying to drown her in compliance. Rika snarled, turned, and drove her knife taken from a choir member's belt in the scramble into her own thigh, deep enough to flood pain through her body. The shock was brutal. Her vision flared white, but the collar's influence faltered, like a hand flinching from a hot stove. Rika twisted the tool again. The clasp popped. The wire collar fell away into her hands, still humming faintly, still warm with obscene intent. Rika flung it into the flames. It sparked, shrieked not audibly, but in her skull, and vanished under burning velvet. Halbrecht coughed in smoke, eyes watering, hair singed. "You stupid," he wheezed. "You'll doom." Rika kicked him hard in the ribs. Bone cracked. Halbrecht folded, gasping. "Good," Rika hissed. "Choke on your mercy." She sprinted for the viewing slit chamber door, keys clutched in one hand, knife in the other. Smoke flooded the corridor outside. Alarm bells began to ring somewhere deeper, soft chimes, musical, as if even panic had to be pretty here. Footsteps echoed, measured and coordinated. The choir was converging. Rika ran. She found a heavy iron door with a lock that matched the keys and jammed one in. It turned. The door swung inward into a holding room filled with bodies. Women and men lay on pallets or sat slumped against walls, eyes glassy, mouths slack. Some rocked gently. Some hummed a lullaby under their breath, unaware. A few lifted their heads, hope flickering weakly at the sight of someone unmasked. Lysa sat in the corner, wrists raw, eyes dull. When she saw Rika, she blinked slowly, as if unsure whether she was real. Rika's heart clenched. "Lysa." Lysa's lips moved. No sound came out at first. Then, faintly, "They said you'd come." Rika cut her bindings with one quick slash. "Can you walk?" Lysa tried to stand. Her legs buckled. Rika caught her, feeling how light she was. Hunger turned into bone. Around them, others stirred. "Up," Rika barked. "Move. Fire's coming." Some obeyed slowly, stumbling, dragged by instinct. Others smiled dreamily and did not move at all, trapped in whatever velvet mercy had poured into their veins. One woman giggled softly and reached for the flame-lit doorway, as if reaching for warmth. Rika grabbed her by the hair and yanked her back hard. The woman cried out, shocked into reality for a heartbeat, then began sobbing. "Sorry," Rika muttered, "not meaning it but meaning it enough." They spilled into the corridor. Smoke thickened. Flames ate drapes with hungry crackling. Choir footsteps echoed nearer. A masked pair appeared ahead, moving through smoke like wraiths. Their hooked blades glinted. Rika shoved Lysa behind her and threw a stool she found in the corridor. It struck one mask, knocking it sideways. Rika charged the other, knife leading. The choir member danced aside, wire snapping toward Rika's throat. Rika caught the wire on her forearm, letting it bite flesh, then yanked hard, dragging the dancer off balance. She drove her knife into the gap beneath the ribs and twisted. The mask tilted, painted smile facing her as if amused. The second dancer recovered, hooked blade arcing toward Rika's head. Rika ducked and slammed her forehead into the mask. Porcelain cracked. Blood splashed warm. The dancer stumbled back, and Rika finished it with a slash across the throat. She didn't admire her work. She kept moving. They ran through burning velvet halls, dragging captives who could still walk, leaving behind those too altered to flee. Some clung to walls, shaking, eyes wide with returning pain. Others fought, not against the cult, but against reality, screaming as the tincture's comfort burned away. Rika's lungs burned with smoke. Her leg throbbed from the self-inflicted wound, every step a reminder she was alive and furious. They burst through an iron hatch into a service stairwell that climbed toward the surface. Cold, wet air filtered down from above like salvation that didn't believe in you. Rika forced the group upward, one step at a time, pushing, swearing, carrying those who fell. Behind them, the Undercity sang alarm chimes, crackling fire, distant humming that tried to reassert itself like a hand reaching. When Rika finally shoved open the street grate and hauled Lysa into Dockwood's rain, the night hit them like a slap. The sky was black. Rain poured hard, washing smoke down into gutters. The street beyond was empty for a heartbeat, and then Rika saw them. Posters, fresh pasted, edges still curling from wet glue. Dozens of them slapped onto walls, lampposts, tavern doors everywhere the watch could make a claim. Wanted Rika Voss for the murder of charity workers, for arson and the desecration of the Velvet Mercy Foundation. Reward 50 crowns. Her face was sketched crude but recognizable. The jaw, the eyes, the scar at her brow. Rika stared, rain streaming off her hood, heart pounding. Lysa made a small, broken sound beside her. They already. Footsteps echoed at the end of the street. Watch boots, torches bobbing. Rika's stomach went cold. The charity wasn't just a building. It had hands in the watch, and those hands had moved fast. Rika tore one of the posters down so hard the paper ripped, then grabbed Lysa's arm and pulled her into the shadows as torchlights swung toward them bright, searching, hungry. Chapter 6. Blades Against Benediction. Talabheim learned your name quickly when it decided you were useful. By dawn the rain had pasted 100 wanted sheets onto Dockwood's walls, and the other half were already damp shreds clinging to gutters and boots. Rika's face stared out from every corner where lamplight pooled crude charcoal lines that still caught her eyes too well. The words beneath were worse. Murderer of charity workers, arsonist, desecrator. The reward was generous enough to make even honest men hungry. The city loved a simple story, a villain, a fire, a charity. It tasted clean. Rika did not taste clean. She crouched in the attic crawl space of a tenement whose roof leaked like a confession. The boards beneath her were soft with rot. The air smelled of mold and old cabbage. Below, tenants murmured, coughed, argued about coin and damp. The building swayed faintly in the wind like a drunk trying to remember pride. Lisa lay on a pile of rags near the chimney, shivering under a blanket Rika had stolen from a laundry line. Her eyes were sunken, her lips cracked. Every so often she hummed, softly, without meaning to snatches of that lullaby trying to claw its way back out of her throat. Rika watched her and felt a cold knot tighten behind her ribs. She couldn't carry the girl like this through Dockwood, not with watch patrols sniffing for coin, not with the choir hunting, not with the cult's hooks buried in the city's systems like worms. She needed allies. Talabheim did not give allies freely. It sold them. Rika had one name, Captain Eric Vaughn. The watch captain of the lower rings was a man who took bribes with one hand and beat cultists with the other. He wasn't righteous. He wasn't kind. But he hated anything that tried to claim authority over the city streets without paying him first. That hatred could be purchased if you brought him something worth more than coin. Proof. Rika waited until the rain thickened and the street noises muffled. Then she tucked her knife into her sleeve, pulled her hood low, and slipped out. Darkwood in daylight was uglier. Night at least hid some rot. Day showed everything. The swollen bellies of starving children, the sores on hands, the bruises on faces, the grey pallor of people who lived too close to the canals and the plague fog. It showed the Foundation's influence too, women in clean aprons handing out bread on corners, smiling softly as they directed the desperate toward Velvet Mercy. It showed drugged faces wandering with blissful eyes, humming as if the world were kind. It showed watchmen with new cloaks and full bellies. Rika kept to narrow lanes and under bridges where the canal water slapped stone like slow applause. She moved like an old habit, head down, shoulders small, presence forgettable. When patrols passed, she became another damp shape in the crowd. The watch house in Darkwood sat in an old tall building near a bridge, thick stone walls stained black by soot and rain. A faded Sigmarite plaque hung above the door, cracked down the middle. 2 watchmen stood guard, their halberds held lazily, eyes sharper than their posture suggested. Their boots were clean, their belts were new. Bought, Rika thought. She approached anyway. Oi, one guard barked. You, stop. Rika stopped, lifting her hands slowly. Need to speak to Captain Vaughn, the guard snorted. Captain's busy. Tell him it's about Velvet Mercy, Rika said quietly. The guard's eyes narrowed. He looked her over more carefully, then glanced to his mate. Something unspoken passed between them, fear, greed, or both. Name? The guard asked. Rika hesitated just long enough to be believable. Rika, the guard's expression sharpened like steel. Rika, what? Rika took a slow breath. Lies were dangerous now. The city already wore her name on its walls. Voss. Both guards stiffened. One hand tightened on a halberd shaft. The first guard's mouth twisted into a grin. Well, look at this. 50 crowns just walked up and knocked. Rika moved. She stepped forward suddenly, faster than their surprise. Her left hand flicked out, palm striking the first guard's throat just under the jaw. He gagged, eyes bulging, halberd dropping. Her right hand punched her knife up into the second guard's armpit, where the leather met flesh. He made a wet sound and folded. Rika caught the first guard as he stumbled, pulling him close so he couldn't shout properly. If you call for help, she whispered into his ear, I'll open your belly and hang you from your own plaque. His eyes rolled, desperate. He shook his head, choking. Rika shoved him back hard into the door. Knock, she ordered. He fumbled, terrified, and knocked. Footsteps inside. The door cracked open. A watchman peered out, saw the wounded guard slumped, saw Rika's hooded face, and began to shout. Rika slammed the door into his face, drove her shoulder through the gap, and forced her way inside. The watch house smelled of wet wool, cheap ale, and old piss. Men looked up from tables, startled. One reached for a crossbow. Rika grabbed the nearest lantern and flung it. Oil burst across the table, flame licking up instantly. Men swore and stumbled back. Smoke bloomed, and chaos bought her seconds. Vaughn, she shouted. Captain Vaughn. A door at the back opened, and a man stepped out as if he'd been waiting. Captain Eric Vaughn was broad-shouldered and thick-necked, his beard trimmed short, his eyes hard as hammered nails. His coat was better than his men's, but not noble quality, just the kind of sturdy leather you could afford when you took bribes. A scar cut across his left cheek like a white slash. His hand rested on the pommel of a short sword. He took in the scene, flames licking at a table, men scrambling, Rika with her knife and her hood and her calm violence, and he didn't look surprised. He looked irritated. "For Sigmar's sake," Varn growled, "if you're going to stage an entrance, do it without burning my furniture." Rika kept her knife up. "You know who I am." Varn's eyes flicked to her face. "I," he said, "the city's newest bedtime story." He jerked his chin toward a side corridor. "In here. Before my idiots decide to be heroes." Rika moved quickly, stepping past the chaos. Varn grabbed her arm with bruising strength and hauled her into the side corridor, then into a small office that stank of ink and old sweat. He shut the door and slid a bar across it. In the dim light, his gaze sharpened. "You've made my morning complicated," he said. Rika met his eyes without flinching. "The Foundation is a cult," Varn snorted. "Everything's a cult if you squint. What makes this one worth my time?" "They're drugging the poor," Rika said. "Conditioning them, using them. They've got people taken into drains. They've got masked killers in the sewers." Varn's expression didn't change. "That's a lot of words for trust me." Rika reached into her coat and pulled out the crumpled ledger page. She'd stolen her name in red ink, the date that didn't make sense, and other entries beside it. She slapped it onto his desk. Varn glanced down, then back up. "This is a list." "It's their list," Rika said. "Bodies, placements, deliveries, choir rehearsals." Varn's eyes lingered on the words choir rehearsal and narrowed slightly. "You expect me to start a purge because you stole a page?" Rika's jaw clenched. "What do you want, then? A daemon's autograph?" Varn leaned forward, voice low and dangerous. "I want proof I can show a magistrate without getting my head chopped for heresy or overreach. Something I can take to the temple without them calling it a Dockwood rumor." His hand tapped the desk. "I want something that screams, 'Burn it all,' in a language even priests understand." Rika swallowed her frustration like poison. An icon, ritual plans, anything from their core. Varn nodded once. "Bring me that, and I'll bring you fire." "And if I don't?" Rika asked. Varn's mouth twisted. "Then I'll bring you a rope. 50 crowns is 50 crowns. Rika stared at him a heartbeat longer, then turned toward the door. Varn's voice stopped her. "One more thing." Rika paused without looking back. "Dockwood's restless," Varn said. "Velvet Mercy's been handing out more than soup. They're handing out fervor. My men have had to break up 3 fights already, folks screaming about withholding mercy like it's sin." Rika's scar warmed faintly at the phrase, like the city itself shivered in recognition. Varn continued, dry as dust. "Whatever you poked last night, you've shaken their nest." Rika left without another word. By the time she returned to Dockwood, the nest was shaking back. The first riot began near the canal bridge, where the Foundation's wagons usually stopped. A crowd gathered, at first the usual desperate line, then more, faces too bright, eyes too wide. They moved like sleepwalkers with purpose, humming softly. Caretakers in grey cloaks stood among them, smiling and whispering. Someone shouted, "Mercy!" Someone else shouted, "They promised mercy." The crowd surged, not toward the Foundation, but outward, spilling into the street like spilled broth. They attacked a baker's stall first. The baker was old, thin, hands flour-dusted. He tried to push them back with a rolling pin. "There's none left," he cried. "You think I bake air?" A man with glassy eyes punched him in the mouth. Another dragged him over the counter. A woman in a clean apron, charity apron, watched with serene approval as the crowd tore bread from shelves, then tore the baker's coins from his belt, then tore his teeth out when he tried to plead. Rika arrived in time to see blood mixing with rain in the gutter, bright and immediate. The crowd turned as one when they noticed her, their eyes fixed on her face, and some recognition flared, not human recognition, but the same cold attention she'd felt in the Undercity. They began to hum louder, a chorus without harmony, and the sound made her scar ache. "Her?" someone whispered, voice reverent. "Her?" Rika stepped back instinctively. "Get away!" she barked. The crowd surged. Rika moved like she always did into violence, because violence was honest when mercy lied. She slammed her knife into the first man's thigh, then kicked him into the next. She broke a woman's wrist with a twist and shoved her into the canal. She dodged a swinging club and drove her elbow into a jaw. Teeth cracked. But these weren't trained fighters. They were starving bodies with drugged courage. They didn't flinch right. They didn't retreat when cut. They came forward with smiles, bleeding, eyes shining as if pain was another kind of pleasure. Rika felt bile rise. She didn't want to kill them, but they would kill her, and they would call it mercy. A hand grabbed her hood. Rika twisted, slashing, and felt her knife open someone's throat. Blood sprayed warm. The man sagged, still smiling, humming through the gurgle. Rika backed toward an alley, trying to create space. The crowd pressed. Then a voice cut through it, sharp and furious. "Rika, here!" Greta Mauer appeared in the mouth of the alley, hair soaked, face pale, holding a small pouch and a bottle. Her eyes were wild with exhaustion and rage. "Greta!" Rika snapped, dodging a grasping hand. Greta yanked the bottle's cork with her teeth and spat it aside. "I made something," she shouted. "It's not perfect. It's all I could." A rioter lunged at Greta. Rika intercepted, slicing the man's forearm and kicking him back. "Now!" Rika barked. Greta hurled the bottle into the crowd. It shattered, spraying a pungent liquid into faces. The smell hit instantly, bitter herbs, vinegar, something sharp like spirits. People recoiled, coughing. Some fell to their knees, retching. The humming faltered. For a heartbeat, their eyes cleared, and then came the screams. Not the blissful, drugged cries of rioters, but the raw screams of people suddenly yanked back into their own bodies, into hunger, into pain, into fear. They clawed at their faces as if trying to peel off the memory of comfort. Some sobbed, some vomited, some stared around in horror at the blood on their hands. Greta grabbed Rika's arm and hauled her into the alley. "It dulls it," she panted. "It breaks the euphoric hold, but it's dangerous." "Dangerous how?" Rika demanded. Greta's mouth twisted. "The body's been forced into bliss. When you rip it away, the shock," she swallowed. "Heart racing, seizures. Some won't survive the snapback." Rika's stomach clenched. "Sigma." Greta pressed the pouch into Rika's hand. "Powder doses. Blow it into their faces if you can. It's limited. I stole what I could, and it's going to get worse." A distant roar rose, rolling over dockwood like thunder. Greta's eyes flicked upward, listening. "They're doing it again." Rika followed her gaze. Down the street, another wave of rioters surged, moving in a coordinated flood. They weren't random now. They were being directed. Caretakers walked among them like shepherds, smiling, touching shoulders, whispering, and above, on rooftops slick with rain, pale masks appeared, choir dancers poised like birds of prey, blades catching dim light. Rika felt her pulse steady into a familiar cold rhythm. 2 fronts, Vaughn had said. Watch below, choir above, and between them drugged poor, used as a battering ram. Greta grabbed Rika's sleeve. They'll blame you, she whispered. They'll say you stirred them. I know, Rika said. I need proof. Something Vaughn can't ignore. Greta's eyes sharpened. Then you need the donation card. Rika blinked. What? Greta nodded toward the canal road. They move donations through dockward when riots start, supposedly to help blankets, bread, but the carts go to a different entrance, a service route that leads under the city. Her voice dropped. I've seen what's inside. It's not aid. Rika's scar warmed faintly. A mobile altar. The thought surfaced unbidden. Greta's jaw tightened. It's part of the instrument. Rika looked toward the canal district. Rain fell hard, turning the road into a mirror of greasy water. The crowd surged around the corner, and behind them rolled a cart draped in velvet cloth, pulled by 2 sweating horses. Grey-cloaked caretakers walked beside it, hands on the cloth as if blessing it. Above, the choir dancers moved rooftop to rooftop, graceful as sin. Rika's mouth went thin. Stay with Lysa, she told Greta. Greta shook her head fiercely. I'm coming. Rika didn't argue. Time was a knife, and it was already cutting. They ran. The canal district was a maze of narrow bridges and slick stone banks where barges nudged against one another like corpses in a ditch. Rain hammered water into ripples. Lanterns reflected in the canal in broken gold lines. The riots surged into the district ahead of them, smashing into a watch line. Watchmen tried to hold with shields and halberds, shouting orders. The rioters surged anyway, drugged fearless, clawing at shields, biting hands. The watch responded with batons and blades. Blood spilled into rain. The gutter drank. Rika and Greta moved along the canal edge, keeping low, slipping behind stacked barrels and fish carts. The velvet-draped donation cart rolled forward through the chaos like a priest's procession, caretakers smiling even as people bled around them. Rika's eyes tracked the rooftops. Masks. 2 dancers paced them above the cart, moving in tandem, watching for threats. Rika breathed out slowly. We cut the horses, she murmured. Stop the cart. Greta's eyes widened. In this, Rika said, or we never get close again. They waited until the cart reached a narrow bridge where the canal pinched tight and the street narrowed between leaning buildings. Bottleneck. Perfect. Rika sprang from cover and sprinted toward the cart. Greta followed, clutching her pouch of antidote powder. A caretaker spotted them and opened her mouth to shout. Rika threw her knife. It spun end over end and buried in the caretaker's throat. The woman fell without sound, smile collapsing into wet surprise. The choir reacted instantly. 2 masked dancers dropped from the roof like falling knives, landing light on the cart's velvet cover. Their hooked blades flashed, their garrote wires snapping out like ribbons. Rika drew her second blade, a shorter knife, stolen earlier, and charged the horses. The first dancer leapt down in front of her, wire whipping toward her neck. Rika ducked and drove forward, slamming her shoulder into the dancer's chest. The mask cracked against her collarbone. Pain flared. She didn't stop. She drove her knife into the dancer's abdomen and twisted. The dancer's partner struck from the side, hook blade catching Rika's arm and ripping cloth and flesh. Rika hissed, yanked free, blood hot in rain. Greta hurled a handful of powder into the second dancer's face. The dancer recoiled, choking. The mask's painted smile stared blankly even as the body convulsed. The wire slipped from their hand. Rika seized the opening and cut the horse's harness straps with a rapid slash. The horse screamed, rearing, eyes rolling white. The cart lurched. The rioters around them surged at the sudden disruption, drawn like moths. Watchmen shoved, shouted, stabbed. Chaos thickened. Rika vaulted onto the cart, boots slipping on wet velvet. She grabbed the cloth and tore it back. Inside wasn't bread, it was an altar. A heavy wooden frame reinforced with iron, mounted on the cart bed, covered in carved symbols that made her scar burn hot. In its center sat a polished icon, an abstract heart pierced by a needle, curling lines around it like veins or vines. Candles in glass holders burned with steady flames that should have died in rain but didn't. Bundles of papers were lashed to the frame, wrapped in oilcloth. Rika's breath caught. "Proof," she whispered. A caretaker lunged at her from the cart's far side, eyes bright, mouth smiling. "Mercy!" she cried, and swung a cudgel. Rika sidestepped and drove her knife into the caretaker's ribs. The woman gasped, then smiled wider, whispering, "Thank you," as she fell. Rika tore the oilcloth bundles free and shoved them into her coat. She grabbed the icon too. It was heavy, cold, and when her fingers closed around it, her scar flared like a coal. "Below!" watchmen shouted. A torch swung, and Rika saw their eyes, some angry, some fearful, some expectant. A watch sergeant barked an order that didn't sound like arrest. It sounded like deliver. Compromised, she thought, deeply. A choir dancer, still choking from Greta's powder, climbed onto the cart, hook blade raised. Greta fought below with a broken bottle, slashing at hands that grabbed for her. Rika kicked the dancer hard in the chest, sending them off the cart into the canal with a splash. The masked head bobbed once, painted smile floating, then sank. Rika leapt down, grabbed Greta's wrist, and ran. They bolted through the canal district, slipping under bridges, dodging watch patrols that came too quickly, too coordinated, as if they had been waiting for this. Above, masked figures danced along rooftops, matching their pace, always there, always watching. Rika's lungs burned. The rain turned the streets into slick death traps. Twice she nearly fell. Twice she caught herself and kept moving. They ducked into an abandoned warehouse by the canal, forced the door shut, and slammed a bar across it. Inside, it smelled of fish rot and wet rope. Darkness swallowed them except for the thin light leaking through gaps in the planks. Greta leaned against a crate, panting, face pale. "Did you get it?" Rika fumbled in her coat and pulled out the oilcloth papers and the icon. The icon's carved heart glinted faintly, hateful in the dim. She unwrapped the papers with shaking hands. Ritual diagrams, notes, schedules. Her eyes scanned until they snagged on a date and a phrase written in neat, confident script. "The grand rite tonight at the height of the festival." Rika's breath stopped. Tonight? Talabheim's civic festival, a yearly spectacle on the upper rings, when nobles threw coin to the crowd and pretended generosity, when processions wound through the crater roads, when the streets packed shoulder to shoulder and the city hummed with drunken song. A perfect chorus, a perfect instrument. Rika looked up at Greta, rainwater dripping from her hood, blood streaking her sleeve. Greta's eyes widened as she read Rika's face. "No," she whispered. Rika's voice came out low and flat. "They're doing it tonight." Outside, through the warehouse planks, Talabheim's distant bells began to ring, not alarm bells, but festive ones, bright, cheerful, wrong. And somewhere beneath those bells, barely audible but growing, a lullaby began to hum. Chapter 7. The crimson gutter rises. Talabheim celebrated as if it had never starved anyone. Up on the ring roads, lanterns were hung in neat chains like pearls around the crater's throat. Banners snapped in the wet wind guild colors, house crests, the hammered comets of the Empire bright enough to insult the grey sky. Brass bands played songs that pretended hunger was a joke, drums beating steady as marching boots. The smell of roasted meat rolled down from the upper districts in warm, greasy waves, drifting over dockward like a cruel rumour. Below, the rain still fell, and the poor still shivered. But tonight, the city was packed. Bodies pressed shoulder to shoulder along the processional routes. Nobles in lacquered masks rode in carriages, tossing copper and stale bread to the crowd with theatrical generosity. Priests lifted hammers and intoned blessings that sounded more like slogans than prayers. Children ran between legs, laughing, because children always believed the world could be kind if you shouted at it loud enough, and moving through all of it unnoticed, welcomed, applauded were the processions of mercy. They came in grey cloaks and clean aprons, pushing carts draped in velvet cloth. They moved like pilgrims, quiet and orderly, offering bowls of soup and sips of sweet tincture to the shivering poor who pressed in at the edges of the celebration. Their smiles were soft, their hands were warm, their voices were lullabies. "Mercy for the hungry," they murmured. "Mercy for the weak." People took what was offered, because hunger did not ask for purity. Rika Voss watched one procession pass beneath a dripping archway, her hood pulled low, her knife hidden under a cloak stolen from a dead watchman. Greta stood beside her in the shadow of a butcher's stall, face tight, eyes darting over the crowd like a hunted animal. Lysa huddled behind them, wrapped in rags, trembling not from cold but from the memory of velvet comfort being ripped away. Farther down the street, Captain Vaughn's men formed a loose cordon, pretending to keep order. Their posture was wrong, too relaxed, too uninterested. Some wore new ribbons on their arms, grey and red, as if charity had become an official badge. Vaughn himself was nowhere in sight. Rika's stomach knotted with cold certainty. "He's bored," Greta whispered, reading the same absence. "Or he's scared," Rika murmured. Same result. The processions did not move toward the festival's center. They moved outward, toward the lower ring road's drainage gates, toward the places where stone steps dipped down into service alleys and storm grates and old culverts. Each procession paused at a different gate, and as soon as they did, the crowd's edges shifted, drawn like iron filings to a lodestone. Drugged poor drifted after them, humming softly, men with hollow cheeks and eyes too bright, women clutching children who stared with blissful calm. A few watchmen, helped by guiding the hungry toward the gates, their hands gentle, their faces blank. It looked like charity. It was a harvest. Rika felt her scar under her ribs begin to warm, a slow pulse that matched the distant drums. The cult's instrument was being tuned. The city itself was being turned into a throat. Greta leaned in, voice urgent. "Those gates lead to old channels. If they're funneling bodies down there." "They are," Rika said, and her mouth tasted of iron. "They're feeding the crimson gutter." Lysa made a small sound behind them, a swallowed sob. They said it was an honor," she whispered, voice thin. "They said the city would sing." Rika didn't answer. Her attention had locked onto a velvet-draped cart rolling toward a drainage gate beneath a bridge. 2 choir dancers moved above it on the rooftops, masks catching festival lantern light in pale flashes. The caretakers around the cart smiled as if they were shepherding lambs to pasture. Rika took a slow breath, tasting rain and smoke. "We go down," she said. Greta's eyes flicked to the crowd, then to Rika. "And if you're right about the altar, about you being the keystone," Rika's jaw clenched, "then I break the instrument." Lysa's fingers clutched at Rika's sleeve. "Don't leave me," she whispered. Rika looked at her, saw the child she'd once protected, saw the hollowed woman she was now. "Stay close," she said, voice rough. "And if I go down, you run." Lysa shook her head violently. "No." Rika didn't argue. There was no time. They slipped into the moving shadow of the procession, blending among the desperate. Rika kept her head bowed, took on the posture of a hungry woman seeking soup. Greta did the same, clutching her satchel of antidote powders and vials like a nervous healer. Lysa followed, eyes wide, trying not to hum. The procession reached the drainage gate. 2 watchmen stood there, halberds crossed. They lifted them when the caretakers approached, not in challenge but in greeting. One watchman smiled as if receiving a blessing. The other unlocked the iron grate with a key and swung it open. Warm air breathed out from below, damp, perfumed. Wrong. The caretakers began guiding people down the stone steps, into the dark. "Careful, love," they cooed. "Hold the railing. Mercy waits below." The crowd flowed down, obedient, eager. Rika stepped into the line. The watchman's eyes flicked up, paused on her face, then slid away as if he couldn't quite see her properly. The cult's touch was on him too, dulling, smoothing. He didn't register danger. He registered procession. Rika descended. The festival's noise faded with each step, replaced by the Undercity's constant wet breathing. The stone stairs were slick, worn smooth by centuries of runoff and misery. Lanterns hung at intervals, new lanterns, polished and oiled, their light warm, flattering, their presence a blasphemy in these depths. Below, the passage widened into an old culvert lined with brick. Velvet banners hung from hooks in the walls, deep red and purple, swallowing the natural gloom. Candles burned in niches, their flames unwavering despite the damp. The air was thick with perfume and rot, sweetness layered over filth like paint over mold. The crowd moved forward in slow, humming silence. Rika's scar warmed more, a steady ache that made her swallow hard. It felt like her blood had learned a new rhythm and was trying to match it. They followed the procession deeper, through junctions marked with crimson paint, those gutter marks that formed a map when seen in sequence. At each turn, another group joined from another gate, merging like tributaries into a river of bodies. Finally, the brick corridors opened into a vast chamber, and even Rika, who had seen Dockwood's worst, felt her breath catch. A cathedral, not built for Sigmar's hammer or Ulrich's wolf, but for something that loved excess and decay. Columns of brick rose into shadow, thick with damp, their bases slick with slime. Velvet banners draped between them like flayed skin. Candles burned in thousands, their light reflecting off wet stone and making the chamber gleam as if oiled. The air was hot here, heavy with bodies and incense, thick enough to taste, and running through the center of it all was a river. Not a canal, not a gutter, but a constant flow of runoff, dark at first, then gradually stained crimson as it moved, as if the city's waste and blood had mingled into a single slow current. It flowed through a carved channel in the floor, its surface rippling with oily sheen. The sound of it was soft, persistent, intimate. The crimson gutter, hungry. On either side of the river sat rows of captives, kneeling or seated, faces turned toward a raised dais at the far end. Some wore clean blankets, some wore nothing but rags. Many had the glazed eyes of the tinctured. Some hummed, some whispered prayers, some smiled as if they had finally been forgiven. Caretakers moved among them, touching foreheads, lifting chins, whispering soft instructions. Each touch seemed to ease resistance, to align bodies into obedient shapes. Choir dancers stood at the chamber's edges, masks pale, bodies still, weapons hidden under cloaks. They were the temple's teeth. At the far end, rising above the river, was an altar. It was not stone. It was wood and iron and polished bone, carved with curling symbols that made Rika's scar flare hot when she looked at them. The altar's surface gleamed wetly, as if it had been washed with something more intimate than water. Above it hung a great velvet canopy that drooped like a curtain in a theater, framing the altar as if for an audience. Rika's stomach clenched. Halbrecht stood near the altar, his coat immaculate even here, his face calm. Beside him stood Mother Sibilant, taller than anyone else in the chamber, her velvet-clad figure lit by candlelight like a saint in a stained-glass window. When Mother Sibilant lifted her hands, the chamber fell into a silence so deep it felt like the city itself was listening. "My poor loves," she said, voice carrying without effort, silk wrapped around iron. "Tonight Talabheim is blessed." A soft murmur rose from the captives, a collective exhale. Mother Sibilant smiled. "You have been hungry, you have been cold, you have been forgotten by those who walk above." Her hand gestured upward, toward the unseen festival. "They celebrate while you rot. They toss you copper like crumbs to dogs. They speak of virtue while they drink wine." The captives' faces tightened with familiar resentment, stoked carefully like coals. Mother Sibilant's voice softened. "But we see you, we feed you, we warm you, we love you." A wave of gratitude rippled through the crowd, drugged and raw. Rika felt bile rise, love used like a leash. Mother Sibilant continued, and her words slid into the chamber like oil into water. "Tonight we do more than feed the hungry." Her smile widened, luminous. "Tonight we elevate Talabheim." Rika's scar burned hotter, as if responding to the word. Halbrecht stepped forward, his voice calm, practical. "The crater is a bowl," he said, "a vessel, a perfect shape. Tonight it becomes a beacon." Mother Sibilant's eyes shone with something like devotion. "A beacon of exquisite sensation," she purred. "A song so beautiful that the heavens will lean close to listen." Rika's mouth went dry. "Demons," she whispered, and Greta's face went ashen beside her. Mother Sibilant's gaze swept the chamber, and for a heartbeat Rika thought it flicked over her hiding place, as if Mother Sibilant could taste her presence in the air. Then the cult leader raised her hands again. The caretakers moved among the captives, uncorking vials, dripping tincture onto tongues. The smell of sweet mercy thickened, eyes glazed, bodies relaxed into bliss. Then the chanting began. At first it was a hum, low and soft, like a mother's lullaby. Then voices joined, one row after another, building into a layered sound that made the air vibrate. The brick columns seemed to catch the sound and hold it, amplifying it. The river's surface rippled in time with the rhythm, and the crimson stain deepened as if the water itself responded. Rika's heart stuttered. A scar under her ribs flared like a coal, heat spreading outward in a tight ring. She pressed a hand to it, teeth clenched. It felt as if the chant was reaching into her blood, plucking strings. Her heartbeat began to sink, not gradually, suddenly, brutally, as if her body had been waiting for the cue. Thump, thump, thump. Each beat matched the chant's pulse. Rika's vision narrowed. The chamber's candlelight seemed too bright, too golden. The velvet banners looked almost wet. The river's crimson sheen glowed faintly in the dark. Greta grabbed Rika's arm, nails digging in. "It's starting," she whispered, voice shaking. "Rika, we have to—" Rika stared at the rows of captives. Dozens, hundreds. Their mouths moved in unison, singing their own chains. Their eyes were half closed in bliss, unaware of the knife poised over the city. She could stop the chorus in one clean way. Kill them. Silence them. Cut throats. Spill blood into the river until the chant broke. It would work. Rika knew it. A chorus needed voices. Without voices, the instrument couldn't play. But the thought hit her like a fist in the gut. These were Dockwood's broken, hungry men, women with bruises, children, people who had lined up for soup. She had killed for coin. She had killed men who deserved it, men who didn't. She had killed because killing was the tool she owned. But slaughtering the poor to save the rich above slaughtering captives who had been drugged into obedience felt like letting the cult win in a different way. Rika's throat tightened. Her hand trembled on her knife. Greta's eyes were wet. "If we don't stop it," she whispered, "everyone dies anyway." Rika's scar burned. The chant rose louder. The river grew warmer. She could see steam now, faint, curling off its surface. The crimson stain thickened, turning the runoff into something that looked more like blood than water. At the altar, Albrecht lifted a carved icon, the heart pierced by a needle, and held it high. The crowd's chants surged, voices tightening into a sharper harmony. Mother Sibilant stepped onto the dais, arms spread. "Sing," she commanded, and the word was a caress and a whip. The captives' mouths opened wider. Their hum became a full-throated chorus that shook brick dust from the ceiling. Rika felt the sound in her teeth, and beneath it, deeper than hearing, she felt something else. A response, as if somewhere below the river, in the darkness under the crimson water, something shifted, stirred, smiled. Rika's scar flared, and for a heartbeat she saw visions overlay the chamber. Masked adults in a ring, crimson water rising, her infant name chanted with ownership. Her stomach heaved. She made her choice. Not mercy, not slaughter, something uglier and quicker. She turned to Greta, voice harsh. "Antidote," she snapped. "All of it." Greta's eyes widened. "If we dump it, it'll shock them," Rika said. "Break the chant, or kill them." Her mouth twisted. "Either way, it disrupts." Greta swallowed hard, then fumbled in her satchel, pulling out pouches and vials with shaking hands. "We don't have enough for—" "We have enough for a break," Rika growled. "A moment, a crack, that's all I need." They moved along the chamber's edge, slipping behind columns, avoiding choir eyes. The dancers were watching the crowd, not the shadows, confident, serene, as if nothing could touch their ritual. Rika's scar burned hotter as she neared the river. The chant's pulse matched her heartbeat so perfectly it felt like she had become part of it. Greta knelt by the river's edge, uncorking slipping in slime. She uncorked vials, mixed powders into a slurry with trembling hands, whispering a half-prayer and half-curse. Rika scanned the chamber. Choir pairs stood at intervals, masks reflecting candlelight. Albrecht watched the crowd with an accountant's satisfaction. Mother Sibilant looked almost radiant, eyes half-lidded as if tasting the sound. The river's surface rippled, crimson and warm. Greta whispered. "Now!" She flung the antidote slurry into the river. It hit the warm runoff with a hiss, spreading in cloudy tendrils that swirled through the crimson like milk in blood. The smell changed instantly, bitter herbs cutting through perfume like a knife through silk. The effect was immediate. The chant faltered. One row stumbled first, voices breaking, throats catching, then another, then dozens. People blinked, eyes clearing, confusion cracking through drugged bliss. Some clutched their heads as the sudden return of pain hit like a hammer. Some screamed, some vomited into the river, the sound violent and human. The harmony shattered into chaos. Mother Sibilant's head snapped toward the river, smile tightening for the first time. Halbrecht's eyes widened a fraction. "Contain it," he hissed. The choir moved. Masks turned toward Rika's shadow. Rika surged forward, knife in hand, using the chaos like smoke. She sprinted toward the altar, aiming for Halbrecht and the icon, and any papers chained to the dais. If she could cut the right's heart out now. A garrote snapped out of the dark like a ribbon of silver. It looped around her wrist and yanked, spinning her off balance. Rika slashed at it, but another wire caught her other arm, then another, like a spiderweb tightening. Two choir dancers stepped in close, their masks cracked in places from past fights, their painted smiles fixed. They moved in perfect tandem, tightening wires with delicate precision. Rika fought, snarling, kicking, twisting. She cut one wire, only to have another slip in, faster. The collar was gone, but the ritual itself pulled at her blood. Her scar burned so hot it felt like it would split skin. Her heart hammered in sync with the chant's remnants, trying to reassert rhythm even as voices screamed. Mother Sibilant descended the dais steps, velvet whispering, eyes bright. "There you are," she purred, as if pleased. "Always at the center of trouble." Rika spat, struggling. "Let them go." Mother Sibilant smiled wider. "But they're already ours, love." They came willingly. Her gaze drifted to Rika's ribs, as if she could see the mark. "And so did you. You followed the hunger straight to its mouth." Halbrecht stepped forward, expression cold. "Put her on the altar," he ordered. Rika's blood went cold. The choir obeyed, wires tightening, dragging her forward through slime-slick stone. Rika clawed at the ground, boots scraping, knife slipping from her grip and skittering away into the dark. Greta shouted, trying to push through the chaos, but a choir dancer struck her down with a hook, blades flat, sending her sprawling. Lysa screamed somewhere in the crowd, lost among other screams. Rika was hauled up the dais steps. The altar loomed, carved symbols seeming to pulse in candlelight. The crimson river ran beneath it, the water now steaming, redder than before, as if the disruption had only excited the hunger. Halbrecht seized Rika's chin and forced her head up. His breath smelled faintly of spiced wine, a luxury even here. "Keystone vessel," he murmured, voice almost gentle. "You don't understand. The city is already singing. Even broken voices make sound." His eyes glinted. "And the rite doesn't require consent. It requires resonance." He slammed her down onto the altar. Cold wood pressed into her spine. Something sticky clung to her clothes. Old offerings, old blood. Iron clamps snapped closed over her wrists and ankles, pinning her spread eagle. They weren't crude shackles. They were fitted, precise, built for this body, built for her. Rika thrashed, muscles screaming. The clamps didn't move. Below, the captive's chaos began to fold back into order as caretakers forced tincture into mouths again, soothing, guiding, retuning. The chant restarted ragged at first, then strengthening as more voices rejoined. The chorus grew. Halbrecht lifted the icon again, raising it over Rika like a blade. Mother Sibilant stepped behind him, hands spread, eyes half-lidded in rapture. Rika's scar burned with unbearable heat. Her heartbeat slammed into the chant's pulse, forced into harmony. The river surged, crimson water slapping against the channel edges like hungry lips. The chamber's candles flared, their flames stretching long and unnatural. The chorus crescendoed, voices filling brick and bone and blood, and from the dark water beneath the altar, something answered. Not a voice and attention, a presence that pressed up through the crimson runoff like a hand rising from a bath. The river's surface bulged, shimmering, as if something below was pushing closer to the air. Rika's eyes widened. The world narrowed to the altar, the chant, the burning scar, and the swelling darkness beneath the red water. The crimson gutter rose. Chapter 8. Mercy in Blood. The thing in the river did not speak. It did not need words. It pressed its attention up through the crimson runoff like a thumbprint on skin, and the sewer temple responded the way flesh responds to a blade tightening, trembling, eager to be opened. Candle flames stretched long and thin, guttering sideways as if a wind blew from somewhere beyond the brick. The velvet banners shivered though no air moved. The chanting rose, not louder but sharper, voices pulled taut as wire. Rika lay clamped to the altar, wrists and ankles pinned by iron that had been shaped for her bones. Her scar burned like a coal pressed against her ribs, and the burn was not only pain, it was instruction, a rhythm, a note. The cult had tuned a whole city around it. Her heartbeat matched the chant. Thump, thump, thump. Each beat dragged her blood into alignment, turning her body into an instrument mouthpiece. Her throat tasted of copper. Her vision shimmered at the edges, as if the world had become a thin veil, and something on the other side was leaning close, smelling her. Albrecht held the icon aloft above her heart, pierced by needle, veins curling outward. Mother Sibilant stood behind him, velvet and pale eyes, arms spread as if she were embracing the entire Undercity. "Sing," she commanded, voice honeyed with authority. "Sing until the city forgets how to suffer." The captives' chorus answered. Rows of mouths opened, rows of eyes half-lidded in drugged devotion. They hummed her into place, their voices crawling under her skin. The river bulged. Something beneath the surface rose enough that the crimson water domed, glossy and thick, reflecting candlelight in warped streaks. A shape pressed from below, suggestion rather than form. A curve, a ridge, the outline of a smile that didn't belong to any human face. Rika's body wanted to arch toward it like a lover. The horror of that of her own flesh betraying her hit harder than the clamps. She forced herself to breathe, not in time with the chant, not in time with the ritual. She dragged air into her lungs on a wrong beat, held it too long, then released it in a shaky exhale that disrupted her own pulse by a fraction. The scar flared in protest, heat intensifying, as if the mark itself was angry at disobedience. Good, Rika thought through pain. Let it be angry. She remembered Halbrecht's tuning fork, the way the stone had answered, the way her collar had hummed, the way the Undercity held sound, amplified it, carried it through Talabheim's channels like blood through veins. A resonator, an instrument. Instruments could be played. Instruments could also be broken. Rika couldn't stop the chant by slaughtering hundreds of drugged captives, not without becoming Mother Sibilant in a different costume. She couldn't wrestle free by strength. The clamps were built for her. The choir waited at the dais edges, masks tilted, ready to cut her if she became too wild. But she could do something else. She could misalign the song because she was the keystone, the focal point, the note everything bent around. If she could twist herself out of tune just enough, she could make the whole structure shudder, make the resonance tear instead of harmonize, make the Undercity carry a discordant note through its channels, like a wrong prayer shouted in a cathedral. It would hurt. It might kill her, but she had lived long enough in gutters to know that sometimes surviving was just another word for choosing who dies first. Below, the river swelled again. A wet, intimate sound rose from it, like a sigh. Halbrecht's voice cut through the chant, practical even now. The vessel is aligned. The city is ready. His gaze dropped to Rika's face, and satisfaction glinted there. Listen, Rika. Listen to what you were made for. Mother Sibilant leaned closer, her perfume thick as sin. Stop struggling, she whispered softly, as if offering comfort. You will be loved. You will be worshipped. You will be the mercy that Dokwood never deserved. Rika stared up at her. A memory flickered, not a vision forced by tincture, but a real thing. A night behind the hanged pike, rain pouring, her hands shaking as she held a younger girl, Mira, who'd been beaten for refusing a man twice her size. Rika had pressed a stolen crust of bread into the child's palm and said, "Eat fast before they take it back." That was mercy in Talabheim. Not velvet, not sermons, not smiling caretakers. A stolen crust, a knife, held steady. Rika's eyes hardened. She began to hum, not their lullaby, not their note. She hummed a low, ugly tone, off-key and flat, a gutter sound that had no beauty in it. She pulled it from deep in her chest and held it steady, forcing her throat to vibrate out of alignment with the chorus. The scar exploded with heat. It felt like her ribs were being pried apart from the inside. She bit down on a scream and tasted blood where her teeth cut her tongue. Her eyes watered. Her muscles clenched against the clamps until tendons screamed, but she kept humming. The chorus faltered just for a heartbeat, a tiny hesitation rippling through the rows as the keystone note shifted. Some captives blinked, confused. Their hum wavered. Mother Sibilant's smile tightened. "What are you doing?" Halbrecht hissed, suddenly sharp. Rika forced her hum lower, pushing it into a frequency that made her teeth ache. She wasn't choosing a melody. She was choosing a wrongness, a misfit note that would scrape against the Undercity's resonant channels and turn them from pipes into cracks. The brick columns trembled faintly. Dust drifted. A candle guttered out. The river's surface, domed by whatever pressed beneath, shivered as if struck. The thing below reacted not with anger, but with interest. The pressure of its attention shifted, like a head tilting. Rika leaned into that. If it could be called, it could also be confused, lured, hooked by a note it didn't expect. Her scar burned hotter, the mark answering her defiance with pain like punishment. Rika didn't stop. She turned pain into rhythm, into fuel. She let it tear through her and used the tearing to push the hum farther out of tune. Greta's face flashed in her mind, Greta's bitter voice. "It's not perfect. It's all I could. The antidote." If Greta was still alive, if she'd kept her satchel, if anyone in this temple still had the bitter herbs that snapped people out of velvet bliss. Rika's eyes flicked desperately across the dais. There, near the altar's base, Greta lay half-propped against a column, one arm limp, face streaked with blood and rainwater. Her satchel was still slung across her body. A choir dancer stood over her, mask tilted, as if deciding whether to finish the job. Lysa was somewhere in the crowd. Rika couldn't see her. only hear the chaos in her own heartbeat. Rika stopped humming for a fraction and sucked in air. Halbrecht seized the opening. He slammed the icon down onto the altar's carved groove near her ribs. The contact sent a jolt through her scar so violent her vision flashed white. Restrain her mind, Halbrecht snapped to the choir. Now, a masked dancer stepped toward her head with a silver wire loop, aiming for her throat again. Rika moved first. She threw her head back hard, slamming it into the altar wood. Pain burst. Stars danced. But she used that shock to break her heartbeat pattern, to jerk herself out of the chance pulse. Then she screamed, not a plea, not a curse, but a raw, ugly roar that carried a wrong note through the chamber like a thrown stone. It worked. For an instant the chorus cracked. Several captives flinched. A few stopped humming entirely, eyes widening in sudden terror. The Undercity's resonance wobbled. The brick columns groaned. The choir dancer with the wire hesitated. Rika seized the moment. She twisted her wrist against the clamp, not to pull free, but to grind skin against iron. The clamp bit. Blood slicked her wrist. Pain flared. She welcomed it, used it to sharpen herself. Her fingers found something under the altar's edge, an iron pin that held the clamp's hinge. Rika's nails, already broken and filthy from a life of scraping, dug at it. She felt metal, felt a tiny shift. She dug harder, snarling through pain. Halbrecht leaned over her, furious now, his calm cracking. "Stop!" he hissed. "You will ruin!" Rika spat blood up into his face. His eyes widened, disgusted. In that blink, she yanked the pin. The clamp didn't open fully, but it loosened just enough for her hand to slip out with a wet tear of skin. She ripped free, screaming, and snatched the icon off the altar. The icon was heavy, cold. It thrummed with the ritual's gathered resonance like a heart beating in metal. Rika slammed it sideways into Halbrecht's jaw. Bone cracked. Teeth sprayed. Halbrecht stumbled back with a sound that was finally human. The choir surged, blades flashing. Rika rolled off the altar, dragging her still clamped leg behind her like dead weight. She hit the dais stones hard, pain tearing through her hip. She crawled, blood smearing on wet stone, toward Greta's fallen body and satchel. A hook blade slashed down. Rika threw the icon up to block. Steel rang against carved metal. The impact jolted her arms numb. She kicked wildly with her free foot and caught the dancer's knee, disrupting the elegant stance. The dancer's partner came in with a garrote. Rika saw the wire, felt it in her scar, and did the only thing she could. She shoved the icon forward like a shield and let the wire catch on its needle-carved heart. The wire tightened and snagged. Rika yanked hard, using the wire's tension to pull the dancer off balance, then drove the icon's pointed edge into the mask. Porcelain shattered. Something wet sprayed. The dancer collapsed, twitching. Rika crawled again, teeth clenched, vision tunneling. Greta's eyes fluttered open as Rika reached her. "Rika!" Greta rasped. Rika tore open the satchel. Inside, pouches of bitter powder, a few remaining vials. Not enough for hundreds, but maybe enough for a single break, a single moment of discord. Greta coughed blood. "Dump it," she whispered. "In the river again. I know," Rika growled. A shadow fell over them. Mother sibilant? She stood at the dais edge, calm again, as if the violence was merely part of the ceremony. Her smile returned, soft and radiant, a blade hidden in silk. "You never learned gratitude," Mother Sibilant murmured. "It's a shame. You could have been so beautiful." Rika looked up at her, rain and sweat and blood mixing on her face. "I was never yours," she hissed. Mother Sibilant's eyes brightened with something almost tender. "Oh, love." She stepped closer. "Everything hungry belongs to what feeds it." The chorus began to reform behind them, voices finding harmony again under caretaker guidance. The river's surface bulged once more. Their presence below leaned close, impatient now, drawn by the ritual's returning rhythm. Rika's scar burned. Her heartbeat tried to sink again, dragged by the chorus like a chain. Rika took a vial from Greta's satchel, popped the cork with her teeth, and swallowed half of it. The bitterness hit like a slap. Her stomach lurched, her vision sharpened painfully. The scar's warmth did not fade, but the pull behind it, the compliance, the sinking sweetness snapped like rotten rope. Rika forced the remaining half of the vial into Greta's mouth. "Stay awake," she snarled. Greta choked, swallowed, eyes watering. "Don't make me watch you die," she wheezed. Rika's mouth twisted. "Close your eyes, then." She grabbed 2 pouches of powder, limped, dragged toward the river channel at the dais base. The clamp still held her leg, iron biting. She ignored it. Pain was just another kind of weather. Choir dancers moved to intercept. Masks glinting, Rika threw the first pouch into a dancer's face. The powder burst. The dancer jerked back, coughing, movements suddenly less graceful, less certain. Rika hurled the second pouch into the air over the river, then stomped it down with her free foot, bursting it into a bitter cloud that drifted over the crimson water. The river hissed. The red runoff churned, cloudy tendrils of antidote swirling through it like poison in wine. The captive's chorus faltered again, harder this time. Voices broke. Some captives screamed as their drugged bliss ripped away. Others sobbed. A few collapsed, shaking. The resonance shattered into discord. The entire temple groaned. Brick dust rained from the ceiling. A column cracked with a wet sound like bone breaking. Candles toppled, flames licking at velvet banners. Mother Sibilant's smile finally slipped. "No," she snapped, the word sharp and ugly, her velvet mask cracking to reveal the thing beneath rage, hunger, devotion, twisted into cruelty. Halbrecht, bleeding from the mouth, staggered back onto the dais, eyes wild. "Hold the chorus," he shouted. "Hold it!" Caretakers shoved tincture into mouths, desperate. The choir tried to herd captives into renewed humming, but the antidote had seeded chaos into the river, and chaos spread faster than mercy. The thing beneath the water reacted. The bulge collapsed, then surged again violent. The crimson surface tore as something pushed upward, not fully emerged, never fully visible, but the impression of flesh that wasn't flesh, a curve of pale color beneath the red, a suggestion of lips parting. A wet laugh rippled through the water without sound. Mother Sibilant turned toward it, arms spread, trying to coax the rite back into alignment. "Beloved," she purred, voice trembling with need. Come to us." Rika understood then, with cold clarity. Mother Sibilant didn't want to stop it. She wanted to embrace it. Even if the city burned, even if Dockwood drowned in crimson runoff, she wanted to be the mouth that kissed the daemon's hand. Rika's hatred sharpened into a single point. She picked her flavor, not bitter, not clean, victorious, but stained. Rika tore the clamp pin loose with a savage wrench and dragged her leg free, leaving a strip of skin behind on iron. She didn't look at the wound. She grabbed her knife from the dais where it had skittered earlier, its handle slick with grime. Mother Sibilant turned as Rika approached, velvet swaying, eyes bright. "You can't kill mercy," Mother Sibilant whispered, and her smile returned, painted by devotion. Rika stalked toward her through ankle-deep crimson runoff that had spilled over the channel's edge. The water was warm now, steaming, smelling of iron and perfume. Each step splashed red onto stone and velvet. Mother Sibilant's hands lifted, fingers poised delicately. The air around them seemed to tighten, charged by the ritual's half-broken resonance. The brick columns vibrated. The daemon's attention hovered close, curious, hungry. Rika lunged. Mother Sibilant moved like a dancer, too faster than her age suggested. She stepped aside, letting Rika's knife slash empty air, then struck with a hidden blade thin as a needle aimed for Rika's throat. Rika caught the strike on her forearm, letting the needle bite skin. Pain flashed. She grabbed Mother Sibilant's wrist and twisted hard enough to make tendons scream. Mother Sibilant smiled through it, eyes shining, and drove her knee into Rika's gut. Rika staggered, coughing, crimson water splashing. Mother Sibilant glided forward, needle blade flicking, trying to carve Rika into obedience. Rika backed into the river channel, letting warm red water reach her calves, using slick stone as advantage. Mother Sibilant followed, unafraid of the filth, because filth had become her temple. Above them, the cult's cathedral began to fail. Columns cracked, velvet banners caught fire, captives screamed, fled, or collapsed. Choir dancers fought like wolves now, masks broken, grace turning to brutality. But on the altar dais, it was just 2 women and the city's hungry god beneath their feet. Rika took another swallow of antidote from Greta's satchel vial, bitter, burning, and spat it into Mother Sibilant's face. Mother Sibilant recoiled, coughing, surprise flashing. The antidote wasn't meant for her, but it stung eyes and broke rhythm. Rika seized the moment. She drove forward, shoulder first, slamming Mother Sibilant into the altar's edge. The velvet-clad woman grunted, breath knocked out. Rika pinned her there, knife raised. Mother Sibilant looked up at her, lips wet, eyes bright with a kind of pity. "You're still hungry," she whispered. "You could have had everything." Rika leaned close, rain and sweat dripping from her lashes. "I'm done being fed," she hissed. Mother Sibilant's mouth curved, smile returning even now painted, obscene, unbreakable. "Then you'll starve." Rika drove her blade forward, straight through the smile. Steel punched through lips and teeth, and the soft ruin behind them, pinning Mother Sibilant's head to the altar wood. Blood spilled hot into the crimson runoff, indistinguishable from the river's stain. Mother Sibilant's eyes widened, not in fear, but in something like rapture. She tried to speak, but only a wet gargle came out around the blade. Rika held her there, face inches away, and watched the light fade. Halbrecht screamed something, rage, denial lost in the temple's collapsing roar. The demon in the river surged, furious now, attention snapping like a whip. The crimson water boiled. The Undercity's resonance, starved of harmony and robbed of its priestess, howled into discord. The instrument didn't sing, it screamed. Rika felt her scarf flare violently, then suddenly release, as if the lock had been turned the wrong way and shattered. The temple began to collapse in earnest. A column fell with a thunderous crack, crushing a row of caretakers. Flames raced along velvet, brick rained down. The river overflowed, red water rushing, carrying bodies like refuse. Greta screamed Rika's name from somewhere in the chaos. Lysa's voice rose too, raw and terrified. Rika yanked her knife free from Mother Sibilant's skull with a wet snap and stumbled toward Greta, dragging herself through warm red water and falling debris. She found Greta on her knees near a cracked column, clutching her side, eyes wild. "Go!" Greta shouted over the roar. The whole thing's coming down!" Rika grabbed Greta under the arm, hauled her up, and shoved her toward a side passage where captives were already fleeing. "Find Lysa!" she snarled. Greta's gaze flicked frantically. Then she stumbled into the crowd. Rika turned back once, just once, to the altar. Mother Sibilant's body lay crumpled against it, velvet-soaked, smile finally broken by death. Albrecht stood near the dais, blood on his chin, eyes fixed on Rika with murderous hate. He opened his mouth to shout an order, and the ceiling above him cracked and came down in a roar of brick and dust. The altar vanished under falling stone. The crimson river surged, swallowing everything. Rika didn't wait to see if Albrecht survived. Talabheim didn't offer clean endings. She ran. She sprinted through collapsing corridors, dragging her wounded leg, slipping in slime and blood, shoving past screaming captives. Choir dancers lunged in the smoke, but the temple was dying, and even their grace couldn't outdance falling masonry. Rika smashed a mask with the butt of her knife and kept going. She kicked another into the river and didn't look back. She found Lisa near a tunnel mouth, crawling on hands and knees, eyes wide with terror. Rika seized her and hauled her up. "Move!" Together they stumbled upward, through a service stairwell that shook with each collapse below. The air grew colder, fresher, wet with rain. The festival bells above had turned frantic, their cheerful rhythm replaced by alarm. They burst out through a storm grate into night air, and rain so cold it felt like a blessing. Talabheim above was still packed festival crowds, drunk and confused, watching smoke rise from lower ring drains. People screamed. Some laughed, thinking it part of the spectacle. Watchmen ran with torches, shouting conflicting orders, and on walls already new posters were being pasted over old ones. The names of culprits, the promise of cleansing, the assurance that everything was under control. Rika caught a glimpse of one poster as she limped past a lamppost. The Velvet Mercy Foundation destroyed by heretics and murderers. The watch seeks the culprit Rika Voss. All citizens are called to report suspicious persons. She laughed, a hard, broken sound. Lysa looked at her with hollow fear. "It's not over," she whispered. Rika stared up toward the upper rings where noble lanterns still glowed. Somewhere up there, patrons who'd funded Velvet Mercy would sip wine and pretend shock. Names would vanish from ledgers. Evidence would burn conveniently. The rot would survive on paper, clean as a lie. Rika pulled her hood lower, rain washing soot and blood down her face. Her scar still ached, no longer warm with obedience, but raw, as if something had been torn out and left a hole. "Nothing's ever over," she said, voice low. She took Lysa's hand and disappeared into Talabheim's wet alleys, into gutters that still ran hungry, carrying secrets downhill.